What happens when even the brightest minds are stumped by an impossible problem? The problem was simple, or so it seemed. At least, to Elon Musk's team. They'd been working on it for weeks now, running through countless models, testing different configurations, and still, nothing seemed to work. It was supposed to be a routine part of SpaceX's newest rocket design, a minor hurdle in the grand scheme of things. But as the days passed, that small issue grew into something much larger. The problem wasn't getting smaller, it was expanding, becoming more complicated, more urgent. Musk's engineers were starting to sweat. No one wanted to admit it, but the problem was beyond them. Inside the sleek, futuristic walls of the SpaceX headquarters, the atmosphere was tense. Musk stood in front of the whiteboard in the conference room, his eyes darting between complex formulas and the tired faces of his engineers. It was supposed to be a breakthrough, but right now, it felt more like a dead end. "I don't understand," one of his lead engineers, Greg, muttered. "Every test has failed. We're not even close to a solution. If we don't solve this, the next phase of the project is at risk." Musk rubbed his forehead, the weight of the decision bearing down on him. His mind raced through possibilities, each one more distant than the last. Was this a fundamental flaw in the design? Were they overlooking something obvious? Or was it something deeper, a problem that couldn't be fixed with calculations or technology alone? Musk couldn't help but feel a growing sense of frustration. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. Elon, another engineer, Sarah, spoke up cautiously, "Maybe it's time to bring in an outside perspective. We're too close to it. Perhaps we need someone who doesn't think like us." Musk's brow furrowed. He was known for bringing in experts, brilliant minds from across the globe to solve his company's toughest challenges, but now? Could they really solve this problem by simply bringing in a fresh perspective? Musk had always believed that the greatest breakthroughs came from thinking beyond the ordinary, but even that wasn't enough this time. Just then, as if by coincidence, his phone buzzed on the table. It was a message from a family friend, inviting him to a charity gala that evening. It wasn't exactly the kind of event Musk was known for attending, he wasn't exactly the party type, but the invitation was for a good cause, and he could use a break from the pressure. He glanced at the clock. Maybe a night out, a change of scenery, would help him clear his mind. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The message scrolled across his screen, a reminder of his social media presence and his commitment to engaging with the world. Maybe the unexpected was the key to moving forward. With a resigned sigh, Musk stood up and gathered his things. "Let's pause for now," he said. "We'll reconvene tomorrow. I'll be at the gala tonight. Maybe we'll get lucky and find some inspiration from an unexpected place." The gala was everything Musk had expected, crowded, filled with high-profile figures, and more than a little overwhelming. He wasn't used to mingling with people outside of his engineering circles, but tonight felt different. The event was for a good cause, and for once, Musk was able to relax a little. As he walked through the grand ballroom, he caught sight of a familiar face. It was Lily's parents, his friends from years ago. They were standing near the front, chatting animatedly with a small group of guests. Musk approached them, offering a casual greeting. "Lily's been growing up so fast," her father said, smiling as he introduced Musk to some of the other guests. "You'd be surprised at how quickly she picks up things. She's got quite the mind on her." Musk raised an eyebrow. "How old is she again?" "4," Lily's mother replied, her voice laced with pride. "She's already picking up concepts we didn't expect at all. I mean, it's almost scary how much she understands for someone so young." "Really?" Musk asked, intrigued. "What's she into these days?" Before her parents could answer, a voice piped up from behind them. It was Lily, the tiny girl who had been quietly standing beside them. Her big brown eyes locked onto Musk, and for a brief moment, there was a stillness in the air. The little girl was holding a small notepad and a crayon, scribbling something furiously. "Hi, Mr. Musk," Lily said, looking up at him. "I think I can help you with a problem." Musk blinked, caught off guard. "Help me with a problem? What problem is that?" She didn't hesitate. "The one you can't solve. The one with the rocket." Musk's mind immediately went to the issue that had been bothering him for days. He had no idea how she could know about it, but then again, he had never been one to underestimate anything, or anyone. "How do you know about that?" he asked, genuinely curious. Lily just smiled, the kind of smile that made Musk pause for a moment. There was a confidence about her, something unusual for a child her age. "I just know. I can fix it. You just need to listen." Musk was skeptical. A 4-year-old couldn't possibly understand the complexities of rocket science. But there was something about Lily, her calm demeanor, the way she spoke without hesitation, that made him want to hear her out. Maybe it was the stress of the situation, maybe it was the desperation for a breakthrough, but he found himself intrigued. "All right," Musk said, still unsure whether he was making the right decision. "What do you think the solution is?" Lily took a deep breath and handed him the notepad, pointing to the scribbled lines and shapes she had drawn. "You just need to change the angle here and here," she said, her tiny finger tracing the lines with precision. "It's simple. All you have to do is think differently. That's how you solve it." Musk stared at the notepad for a long moment. He couldn't deny the simplicity of it, but there was no way it could be that easy. Still, something inside him, something deep and unexplainable, urged him to try. He felt a small flicker of hope. Could a child really have the answer? Could it be possible that Lily, with her innocent understanding of the world, had just solved a problem that had eluded the greatest minds in his company? "All right," Musk said slowly, his mind racing. "Let's give it a shot." As he walked away from the gala that night, the weight of the problem on his shoulders seemed a little lighter. Maybe Lily's idea wasn't a solution, maybe it was something far more valuable, a new perspective. Tomorrow, Musk was going to test it. And if she was right, it would change everything. Lily's family had always known she was special. From the time she could talk, her language skills were far beyond her years. She'd pick up a new word every day, and before long, she was speaking in complete sentences that even some adults would struggle to understand. But it wasn't just her vocabulary that set her apart, it was the way she understood the world. Simple concepts that other kids her age would barely acknowledge seemed to make perfect sense to Lily. At 4 years old, she had an intellectual maturity that baffled her parents, and anyone who took the time to observe her. Her father, Adam, a renowned physicist, and her mother, Claire, an engineer, were proud of their daughter's gifts, but they also felt the pressure of what it might mean for her future. They weren't sure what to do with someone so advanced, someone whose thoughts seemed to outpace the usual developmental milestones. They had always tried to nurture her curiosity without pushing too hard. But no matter how much they encouraged her, Lily always seemed to take things to a new level on her own. At first, it had been charming. They thought it was adorable when Lily started discussing basic math concepts at age 3. She'd sit at the kitchen table, scribbling down numbers, drawing circles, and telling her parents about the patterns she could see in the world around her. She'd ask questions that were well beyond her age, questions that made Adam and Claire stop and think for a moment. But as time went on, the pressure started to mount. How do you raise a child who might be one of the smartest people in the room, even if that room was filled with scientists, engineers, and mathematicians? Lily didn't mind the attention. She had always been remarkably calm and unbothered by the world around her. While other kids her age were more interested in playing games or watching cartoons, Lily had developed a strange fascination with how things worked. Her toys were often taken apart and put back together in strange, inventive ways. Legos, instead of being arranged into houses and cars, were used to create miniature bridges and catapults. She was never satisfied with the idea of just playing, everything had to have a deeper function. Her parents were amazed by her ability to ask questions that no one else would consider. Why do rockets fly? How do satellites stay in space? What makes electricity move through wires? Lily wasn't just curious about the world, she was trying to understand its fundamental principles. And sometimes, she got frustrated that her parents didn't have all the answers. On a quiet Saturday afternoon, Lily sat in her room, surrounded by books, a chalkboard, and piles of crayons. She had a particular problem on her mind. She had watched a video on YouTube about space travel earlier that day and something caught her attention. The rocket in the video wasn't quite as fast as it should have been. Lily knew this because she had seen a similar experiment in one of her books, but the rocket design was different. The angle of ascent, the materials used for propulsion, it didn't add up in her mind. She stood up and walked over to her chalkboard. With a serious look on her face, she started drawing circles, lines, arrows, and explaining out loud to herself how she thought things should work. There were no adults in the room, but that didn't matter. She was determined to figure it out on her own. Her parents found her like this often, focused, intense, her mind racing. She wasn't just a kid who liked puzzles, she was someone who instinctively understood systems, who could take complex concepts and simplify them into clear, logical steps. Adam and Claire exchanged looks of concern and awe when they saw what their daughter was doing. "Lily," Adam asked gently, kneeling down beside her, "what are you working on?" Lily looked up, her face beaming with the joy of discovery. "I'm solving a rocket problem," she replied matter-of-factly. "I think I can make it go faster. The rocket needs a better angle to get into space. If the angle is wrong, it won't go far enough." Adam, a scientist through and through, blinked in surprise. "Really? That's a big idea for someone your age. Do you think it will work?" "I know it will work," she said, a smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "I'll need a few things to test it, but I know I can do it." Claire, who had spent years designing complex systems, was amazed. But she didn't want to get her daughter's hopes up. "That's a big challenge, sweetie. Rockets are complicated. There's a lot that has to be just right for them to work." "I know," Lily replied, undeterred. "But I can do it. I just have to figure out the parts." Her parents exchanged a quiet look, both wondering if their daughter was perhaps just a little too brilliant for her own good. The night of the gala arrived, and Claire and Adam took Lily with them to the event. It wasn't a place where most people would expect a child to feel at home, but Lily was anything but ordinary. She sat quietly in the corner, watching the adults chat and laugh, her eyes occasionally drifting to the high-profile guests and their conversations about science, technology, and the future. As they mingled, Adam and Claire found themselves talking to Elon Musk. They had met him years ago through a mutual friend, and he was no stranger to the world of brilliant minds and unconventional ideas. It was a rare opportunity to talk to him, and they had prepared a few questions about some of his latest ventures. They never imagined, though, that the conversation would take a sharp turn toward the unexpected. Lily, who had been drawing on her notepad in the corner, looked up at the group and walked over to Elon, her tiny footsteps soft against the polished floor. "Hi, Mr. Musk," she said with a serious expression, holding out the notepad. Musk, taken aback by the directness of the young girl, paused. "Hello there," he said, kneeling down to her level. "What's on your mind?" Lily handed him the notepad, her crayon drawing sprawled across the page. "You have a problem with your rocket," she stated, her voice almost matter-of-fact. "I can fix it." Musk's eyebrows raised in surprise. "You can fix it?" Lily nodded. "You just need to change the angles. I've figured it out." Her words hung in the air for a moment. The simplicity of what she said struck Musk, but also sparked his curiosity. He had spent weeks dealing with this exact problem. Could a 4-year-old really have the answer? He chuckled, not out of disbelief, but more out of intrigue. "Well, that's a bold claim for someone so young," Musk said, still trying to process the situation. "Tell you what, let's talk more about it. Maybe you can show me what you mean. As she talked about the angles and the rocket design, Musk found himself listening intently, surprised by how much sense she was making. Maybe this wasn't just a child talking nonsense. Maybe she was on to something. Elon Musk couldn't shake the strange feeling that had settled in his gut since meeting Lily. It wasn't that he didn't believe in the power of unexpected ideas, he was, after all, a man who built rockets and changed the world of space travel with some of the most unorthodox approaches imaginable. But something about Lily's confidence, her almost eerie certainty about a problem so complex, had struck him. She was a 4-year-old. A 4-year-old. And yet, here she was, talking about rockets and angles in a way that made sense. The next morning, Musk arrived at SpaceX's headquarters with one thought on his mind: could a child have the solution to his company's greatest challenge? He pushed the thought aside as he entered his office. There was no time for doubts. His engineers had been working around the clock, and the clock was ticking on the next phase of the rocket's development. But that gnawing question about Lily lingered in the back of his mind. Later that morning, Musk pulled Greg and Sarah aside for a private meeting. The engineers were already feeling the pressure. Failure was no longer an option. The stakes had only grown higher in recent weeks, and Musk's usual air of cool confidence had shifted into something more intense. He couldn't afford to waste time. "We need to test something," Musk said, leaning against the whiteboard in his office. His eyes flickered between Greg and Sarah. "I was at an event last night, and something unusual happened. A little girl, Lily, the daughter of friends, she might have the solution." Greg blinked. "A little girl? Elon, I get that we're all trying to think outside the box here, but..." "No, listen," Musk interjected. "She knows about the rocket issue. And she gave me an idea. I think we should test it." "Test it?" Sarah asked, clearly unsure. "Are you serious?" Musk nodded. "I'm serious. She might be a child, but I've learned to trust unconventional ideas. Let's give her a shot. We can run it against our current model and see what happens." There was a long silence in the room. Greg and Sarah exchanged uneasy glances, and Musk could see they were skeptical, to say the least. He understood. It was absurd. But that was the thing about Musk, he was always looking for solutions in places others would never dream of. "If this works," Musk continued, breaking the silence, "it'll change everything. And if it doesn't, we've lost nothing. Let's just try it." Reluctantly, Greg and Sarah agreed. After all, they trusted Musk's judgment, even if this particular idea seemed ludicrous. But they couldn't deny that the stakes were too high to ignore any possibility. If there was a chance, however small, that a 4-year-old could help them solve a problem that had stumped the world's greatest engineers, they had to try. That afternoon, the team gathered in the testing facility. The enormous white walls of the lab seemed to hum with anticipation. Engineers moved briskly, checking systems and setting up for the trial. The rocket in question was already in its final testing phase. It was a model that had taken years to develop, and it was nearly ready to launch, except for the stubborn issue that no one could seem to fix. Musk stood at the back of the room, watching as his engineers followed their usual routines. He was about to introduce a new variable into the equation, one they weren't expecting. Lily was sitting beside him, her legs swinging in the oversized chair next to him. Her presence in the testing facility was just as strange as the suggestion to test her idea, but Musk was determined. He had spent too much time with his back against the wall to dismiss anything, no matter how outlandish it seemed. Lily was absorbed in her own thoughts. Her little notepad was in her lap, and she was doodling again. The calmness of her demeanor was almost unnerving. It was as though she didn't have a care in the world, as though the weight of the entire rocket test didn't even faze her. "Okay, Lily," Musk said as he turned to her. "We're ready to test it. You remember what you said, right?" Lily nodded, her gaze still fixed on her drawings. "I do. It'll work. I know it will." With a nod, Musk motioned to Greg. Let's run her design. Test angle 1 first, just like she said. The tension in the room was palpable as the engineers moved quickly to implement the changes. There was no time for hesitation, and the pressure of what was at stake seemed to electrify the air. For a moment, the only sound in the room was the hum of machines and the rapid clicking of keyboards as the team calibrated the rocket systems. Lily glanced up, her little face filled with excitement. It's going to fly, she whispered, more to herself than anyone else in the room. The countdown began, and the rocket, now altered with Lily's proposed adjustments, slowly rose from the launch pad. At first, nothing seemed different. The rocket ascended, as it had countless times before, climbing into the atmosphere. But then, as the rocket hit a certain threshold, something remarkable happened. The rocket accelerated. Faster. Smoother. The trajectory was precisely what Musk's team had been struggling to achieve for weeks. The speed was greater than expected, and the arc was flawless. Musk's breath caught in his throat. It was working. It was really working. He watched in awe as the rocket sailed through the sky, a gleaming trail of light in its wake. The engineers, once skeptical, were now wide-eyed and cheering, their faces flushed with disbelief and excitement. It's perfect. Greg shouted, barely able to contain his shock. Musk smiled, his heart pounding in his chest. I think we just did the impossible. The room erupted in applause. For a brief moment, it felt like the world had paused, and everything had aligned perfectly. They had done it. They had solved the problem that had plagued them for weeks, and all it had taken was a 4-year-old's simple insight. Lily, still seated at her chair, simply smiled, content in the knowledge that she had done exactly what she knew was possible. Elon Musk turned to the little girl and offered her a rare, genuine smile. Lily, you just might be the smartest person I know. Lily giggled, looking up at him with bright eyes. I told you it would work. After the success of the test, SpaceX's headquarters seemed to buzz with a new energy, a kind of electrifying excitement that rippled through every department. Engineers, scientists, and even Elon Musk himself were in disbelief, but they couldn't deny it. The rocket had worked, and the adjustment that had been suggested by a 4-year-old child had made the difference. Musk couldn't stop thinking about Lily. He had seen plenty of brilliant minds in his life, visionaries and engineers who could look at complex problems and find solutions that no one else could see. But never had he encountered someone so young, so unassuming, with such raw potential. There was a quiet kind of genius in her, the kind that didn't need to shout for attention or demand recognition. She simply knew things, and she knew them in a way that defied all logic. But that was the thing about Lily, she wasn't just intelligent. She was a phenomenon. The media didn't take long to catch wind of the story. Within hours, headlines started to appear in major outlets. 4-year-old genius solves SpaceX's rocket problem. The story spread like wildfire. Television shows, podcasts, and news segments all began to speculate about the child who had stumped Elon Musk. How had she done it? What did she know that the best minds in space exploration didn't? The questions were endless, but no one seemed to have a clear answer. For Lily, however, the fame didn't matter. She was still the same curious little girl who liked to take things apart and put them back together in new ways. But her life was about to change in ways she hadn't anticipated. Adam and Claire had always tried to shield Lily from the spotlight. They had done their best to give her a normal childhood, despite the fact that she was anything but ordinary. But now, as interviews and media requests started flooding in, they found themselves caught in a whirlwind they had no idea how to navigate. At first, they turned down the interviews, explaining that they wanted to keep Lily out of the public eye. But the pressure mounted. Companies started reaching out with sponsorship offers, speaking engagements, and opportunities to collaborate. They were offering unimaginable sums of money for her to consult or speak at events, some even proposing that she join their teams as a young prodigy in the making. Despite all the attention, Lily remained untouched by it. She didn't care about the money or the recognition. She wasn't interested in becoming the youngest celebrity or prodigy in the world. She just wanted to understand how things worked, to keep solving puzzles, and maybe, just maybe, she would find the answer to the next big question. It wasn't long before Musk reached out to Adam and Claire with a proposition. He wanted Lily to come to SpaceX and join his team. Not in any formal sense, of course. Lily was still a child, but he had seen something in her that he couldn't ignore. Her understanding of rocket science had blown his mind. If they could bring her in on future projects, he believed she could help them solve problems that no one else was able to even fathom. Adam and Claire were hesitant, unsure of what this new path would mean for Lily. They had always kept her away from the pressures of the world, but this was different. Elon Musk wasn't just offering a chance to be a part of SpaceX's groundbreaking work, he was offering an opportunity to shape the future of humanity's exploration of space. But would that be fair to Lily? Should they allow their young daughter to become a part of something so big, so demanding, at such a young age? "I don't want her to lose her childhood," Claire said one evening, sitting down with Adam after they received Musk's proposal. "She's still a little girl. She loves to play and draw, and I don't want her to miss out on that." Adam leaned back in his chair, his fingers tapping on the table in deep thought. "I get it. I don't want to push her into something she's not ready for. But look at what she's done. This could change everything for her, for all of us." Claire nodded slowly. "But we need to be careful. The world isn't kind to child prodigies. People will expect more from her than she can give. We need to make sure she's ready for that, if we even consider it." It was a hard decision, one that neither of them wanted to make. The pull of the opportunity was undeniable, but the risks were equally high. Meanwhile, Lily sat at her desk, working on a new problem. A friend had brought her a broken toy, and Lily was trying to figure out how to fix it. She had completely tuned out the conversation between her parents. This was her world, a world of questions and answers, of curiosity and discovery. She didn't care about the fame or the attention. She didn't even care about being a genius. She just wanted to learn more. In the weeks that followed, the decision weighed heavily on Adam and Claire. But in the end, they couldn't deny that Lily had a unique gift, one that could change the world. And maybe, just maybe, it was their job as parents to help guide her in a way that allowed her to use that gift while still preserving her childhood. The solution, they decided, was a balance. They would take things slowly. Lily would continue her education at her own pace, and her parents would make sure she didn't lose the sense of wonder and joy that every child deserved. And if she chose to be involved in Musk's projects, it would be on her terms. One morning, as the family sat down for breakfast, Lily looked up from her plate and said, "I think I want to go to SpaceX. I want to see how rockets are built and help make them better." Adam and Claire exchanged a look, both relieved and apprehensive at the same time. They had worried about this moment, and now it had arrived. "Are you sure, sweetie?" Claire asked, her voice gentle. Lily nodded, her eyes shining with excitement. "Yeah. I want to see what happens next." And just like that, Lily had made her decision. The next few days were a whirlwind. Lily's decision to visit SpaceX was met with both excitement and anxiety. Adam and Claire had spent hours discussing how they could balance Lily's natural curiosity with the world she was about to step into. They knew that her meeting with Elon Musk could lead to something monumental, but they also wanted to protect her from the overwhelming expectations that would inevitably follow. Musk, on the other hand, had already prepared for Lily's arrival. He had made arrangements to ensure she would be surrounded by a team that understood her unique talents. Musk knew better than anyone the pressure of high expectations. As a visionary who had often been cast as the man with all the answers, he understood what it felt like to live in the spotlight, and he was determined to make sure Lily's introduction to SpaceX was as smooth as possible. When the day arrived, the family was greeted at the entrance of SpaceX's headquarters by a team of engineers, each eager to meet the girl who had helped solve the company's biggest problem. The atmosphere was a mixture of anticipation and awe, SpaceX's engineers knew that Lily had a mind that was unlike anything they'd ever encountered. Elon Musk himself was there to greet them. His usual cool, confident demeanor was tempered with something softer today, a kind of quiet respect as he watched Lily walk through the door. He knelt down to her level and extended a hand, smiling. "Hi, Lily. I'm Elon. I've heard a lot about you." Lily smiled back, her eyes sparkling with the same bright curiosity that had captivated everyone around her. "Hi, Elon. I like rockets," she said simply, as if they were old friends. Musk chuckled. "Well, you've come to the right place. We've got a lot of rockets around here." As they toured the facility, Musk explained the various stages of rocket development, pointing out the different sections where the rockets were assembled, tested, and fine-tuned. Lily listened intently, her small face set in concentration. Occasionally, she would ask questions, sometimes simple, other times astoundingly perceptive. "Why does the rocket have to be so big?" she asked at one point. "Well, rockets need a lot of power to break through the atmosphere," Musk explained, his eyes twinkling with the kind of excitement that Lily's questions seemed to draw out of him. Lily frowned thoughtfully. "But if it's too big, it gets heavy, right? Maybe it needs to be lighter." Musk's smile widened, and he nodded. "That's exactly right. We've been trying to figure out how to make rockets lighter without losing power." "You've got a good eye." Lily beamed. She was thrilled to be surrounded by engineers who actually wanted to hear her thoughts. She had always known she was different, but it wasn't until now that she realized just how much her insights could matter. The team led them to one of the largest launch simulators at SpaceX, a room that looked more like a futuristic cockpit than anything else. Musk invited Lily to take a seat. "Want to try it?" he asked. Lily climbed into the seat, looking up at the large, complex controls. She examined them for a moment, before turning back to Musk with a mischievous grin. "I'll try it. But I think I can make it go faster." Musk chuckled, his voice filled with admiration. "Let's see what you can do." As the simulator powered up, Lily's tiny fingers danced across the buttons and levers, her eyes scanning the virtual world in front of her. Musk watched in awe as she maneuvered the simulator with a calm precision. It was like she had done it 1,000 times before. "Here we go," she murmured, pushing a button and adjusting a lever. Suddenly, the simulation rocket surged forward at an accelerated pace, racing through the virtual atmosphere with an unexpected burst of speed. The engineers in the room gasped. Even Musk was stunned. They had just seen a 4-year-old optimize a rocket launch simulation in real time, improving its speed and efficiency. Lily turned to Musk, a satisfied grin on her face. "See? Faster." Musk shook his head, half laughing, half amazed. "I don't know how you did that, but you just made that launch 3 times faster than we thought possible." The engineers exchanged glances, each trying to process what they had just witnessed. It was as if a child had just rewritten the rules of rocket science. Later that evening, as the family settled into a quiet room within SpaceX's headquarters, Adam and Claire couldn't help but feel a mix of pride and concern. Lily had done it again, she had impressed the very team that was known for pushing the boundaries of what was possible. But with each success, they felt the weight of their decision to let her pursue this path more heavily. Adam leaned back in his chair, his hands clasped in front of him. "She's amazing, Claire. Did you see how she handled that simulator?" Claire nodded slowly, her gaze focused on Lily as she played with a set of colorful toy blocks on the floor. "I saw. But I'm still worried, Adam. This world is so big. She's so young. I don't want her to lose herself in it." Adam sighed, reaching out to take her hand. "I know. But look at her. She's not lost. She's just being herself. She's happy. And she's doing something that no one else can. Maybe this is her path. Maybe it's our job to guide her, not hold her back." Claire gave him a small smile, though the worry in her eyes remained. I just hope we don't push her too hard, too fast. I don't want her childhood to slip away. Adam squeezed her hand. We'll be careful. We'll make sure she gets to explore this world at her own pace. That night, as Lily drifted off to sleep, her dreams were filled with rockets, stars, and far-off planets. She didn't dream of fame or fortune, just the endless possibilities that awaited her in the world of science and discovery. The next morning, Musk met with Adam and Claire privately, having arranged a quiet meeting in one of the conference rooms. I want to offer Lily a chance to be involved with SpaceX, Musk began, his tone serious yet respectful. Not in a conventional way, but I want her to be part of the team. I believe she can help us with our next big project, one that could change everything for humanity. I'm not asking for a full-time commitment, but I think she can help us unlock the future. Adam and Claire exchanged a glance. They had anticipated this moment, but hearing Musk say it out loud made it all the more real. We'll need time to think about it, Adam said carefully. But we appreciate the opportunity. Musk nodded. Take all the time you need. I just want her to have the space to grow, but I also believe she could do extraordinary things. As Adam and Claire left the meeting, they found themselves once again at a crossroads. Lily's future was full of possibility, but they needed to ensure that she remained grounded in the joy of being a child, no matter how much potential she had to change the world. Lily's life had been irrevocably changed in the days following her visit to SpaceX. The world had become aware of her extraordinary abilities, and for the first time, she could sense the shift in the way people looked at her. The spotlight, though not overwhelming yet, had begun to hover just out of reach, and with it came expectations. Expectations that, for a child, were difficult to understand. As the days turned into weeks, Adam and Claire became increasingly concerned about Lily's well-being. They saw the subtle changes in her behavior, the way she started to question every moment of her day, wondering if she was doing enough, or if she was living up to the promises made on her behalf. It wasn't the questions of a 4-year-old child anymore. It was the questioning of someone who had tasted the pressure of greatness and had begun to feel its weight. Claire noticed it first one afternoon, while they were at the park. Lily, who usually ran with abandon, her laughter filling the air as she played with other children, was unusually quiet. She sat by herself on the swings, staring at the ground. Claire sat next to her, pushing the swing gently. "Hey, sweetie," Claire said softly, "what's on your mind?" Lily's small voice was barely audible, but Claire caught the words. "I think I'm supposed to be helping people. I don't know if I'm doing enough." Claire's heart sank. It was one thing to be a child prodigy, but quite another to feel as though you were already failing to live up to some unspoken expectation. "You're doing plenty, Lily," Claire said, her voice warm but firm. "You don't have to save the world just yet." Lily's gaze didn't lift from the ground. "But what if I'm the only one who can do it?" Claire sighed, her own mind racing with the enormity of her daughter's thoughts. "Sweetheart, you are amazing. You don't need to prove anything to anyone, especially not to grown-ups like me and your father." Lily shook her head. "But Elon says I can help him. And I think I can." Her words hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Claire was torn. On the one hand, she knew that Lily's intellect was extraordinary. But on the other hand, she didn't want her daughter to lose the innocence of childhood, to be consumed by a sense of responsibility that was too much for her age. "I know you want to help," Claire said gently, "but you don't have to do it all right now. Just be a kid. You can always help others later, when you're ready. When you know that helping makes you happy, not scared." Lily didn't respond. She simply stared at the ground, her thoughts likely spinning like the world on its axis. Meanwhile, Elon Musk was busy with his own reflections. After meeting with Adam and Claire, he had spent hours in his office, reviewing the footage of Lily's interactions with the SpaceX team. The child's brilliance was undeniable, but he too had begun to notice something different. It was as if she were carrying a weight, one that wasn't just about rockets and space, but about the expectations the world now had for her. Musk was no stranger to pressure. He had lived with it for years, feeling the weight of a billion-dollar empire and the responsibility of sending humanity to Mars. But that was something he had chosen, something that had been his dream for decades. Lily, on the other hand, hadn't asked for this life. She hadn't asked to be placed on a pedestal, to be viewed as the savior of space exploration at the age of 4. But Musk was no fool. He saw the opportunity before him. There was no question in his mind that Lily could change the world. But the question he struggled with was how best to help her navigate this path, so that she could realize her potential without burning out before her time. He called his team together for an urgent meeting. "We need to slow things down," Musk said, addressing his engineers and lead scientists. "We're rushing this. Lily is a child, and while her intellect is far beyond most of us, we have to give her room to grow at her own pace. We need to protect her from the pressure, and from being swept up in the whirlwind of fame." The team nodded, their faces serious. They all understood. It was one thing to work on rockets and Mars missions, but it was another thing entirely to be entrusted with the care of a child prodigy. No one knew what the right answer was, but they all agreed on one thing: they had to move carefully. "Let's focus on small, manageable projects for now," Musk continued. "Give her the chance to contribute, but in a way that doesn't overwhelm her. If we push too hard, we risk losing her." As the weeks went by, SpaceX made subtle shifts in their approach. Lily was still allowed to visit the facility, but now the focus was less on her genius and more on nurturing her curiosity. Instead of being thrust into the spotlight, she spent her time learning in a more relaxed environment, surrounded by people who respected her but didn't expect her to change the course of history overnight. Lily was still a part of the team, but it was in a way that felt natural to her. She was given small tasks, ones that didn't have world-altering consequences. For instance, she was asked to observe how parts were assembled, and then asked what she thought might make the process more efficient. They weren't asking her to solve the rocket science of the future, just giving her room to explore. And for the first time in weeks, Lily seemed content. The weight that had settled on her shoulders lightened, and the sparkle returned to her eyes. She began to play with the engineers, asking questions, sharing ideas, but without the pressure of being the one to save SpaceX. Yet, deep down, she knew that something extraordinary was happening. She couldn't articulate it fully, but she could sense the potential around her. And she still felt that tiny spark within herself, the spark that told her that someday, somehow, she would change the world. That night, as Lily lay in bed, Adam and Claire sat by her side, watching her drift into a peaceful sleep. It was then that Claire realized something profound. They had been so focused on protecting her, on shielding her from the pressures of the world, that they had almost forgotten the most important thing: Lily was already changing the world, just by being herself. And that was enough. Lily's new routine at SpaceX seemed to suit her well. For the first time in weeks, Adam and Claire began to breathe a little easier. It wasn't just the pressure that had been lifted from their shoulders, it was also the genuine joy they saw in Lily's face again. She was still a part of SpaceX's world, but now in a way that felt organic, not forced. She spent hours tinkering with toys, solving puzzles, and asking the engineers questions that no one else would have thought to ask. And yet, even with the lighter atmosphere, there was an undercurrent of change that neither Adam nor Claire could ignore. Elon Musk, too, noticed the shift. While the young genius was no longer the focal point of SpaceX's media attention, her presence was still felt. The engineers who had witnessed her brilliance firsthand spoke of her with reverence. Yet there was a quiet humility about her now, something that made Elon both proud and concerned. He had learned long ago that even the brightest minds could burn out if not handled with care. And he could tell that there was something deeper lurking within Lily, something that both fascinated and frightened him. It wasn't just the work that Lily did at SpaceX, it was the unspoken tension that existed in the air when she was near. There were whispers among some of the higher-ups in the company, murmurs about how to best use her talents for the company's ultimate goals. Some, like Musk, wanted to protect her, to guide her through the complexities of being a prodigy, but others saw her as a tool, an asset that could be used for SpaceX's most ambitious projects. It wasn't long before those forces began to pull at Lily in ways that no one had anticipated. One afternoon, after a long day of observing engineers as they worked on new rocket components, Lily was once again in one of SpaceX's vast labs. This time, though, she wasn't working with toys or puzzles. She had been asked to look over some preliminary designs for a new spacecraft. Musk, who had dropped by to check on her, found her in deep concentration, staring intently at the complex blueprints spread out on the table in front of her. "How's it going?" Musk asked, sitting down beside her. Lily looked up, her brow furrowed. "I think the design is too messy," she said, her tiny finger tracing the lines of the spacecraft. "The engines are too close to the cargo hold. They'll get too hot, and the heat will melt the materials. It won't work." Musk raised an eyebrow, impressed. "That's a very astute observation. Do you think we can fix it?" Lily nodded solemnly, her small hand moving over the blueprints with a newfound confidence. "You'll need to move the engines back and add more insulation. But the hull needs to be stronger. You're going to need stronger materials if you want it to hold up during takeoff." Musk sat back in his chair, staring at her in disbelief. A 4-year-old was telling him how to redesign one of the most sophisticated spacecraft concepts in the world. It was a moment of awe, mixed with a slight unease. He was amazed at her intellect, but the weight of the situation was not lost on him. This wasn't just a child playing with toys, this was a child, who, at the age of 4, could potentially change the future of space exploration. But then, an unsettling thought began to form in his mind: could she really be the one to take SpaceX's projects to the next level? Was it right to put so much of the future in the hands of someone so young, someone who had barely begun to understand the implications of her own brilliance? Lily, noticing Musk's silence, looked up at him curiously. "Did I do something wrong?" she asked, her voice small. Musk blinked, quickly shaking his head. No, you did nothing wrong. You did everything right. I'm amazed, that's all. You're really something, Lily." She smiled, clearly pleased with herself, but Musk couldn't help but feel the weight of his responsibility growing heavier. He had always prided himself on taking risks, pushing boundaries, and challenging the impossible. But now, he found himself questioning whether he was doing the right thing by involving Lily in this world at all. She was a child, after all, a brilliant, gifted child, but still just a child. As the days passed, Musk became more and more aware of the tension growing around Lily. There were those at SpaceX who were already planning for the next steps, grand ideas of how they could use her to push beyond the boundaries of what had ever been possible. Some were excited at the prospect of having a child genius at their disposal, while others were more cautious, questioning whether it was ethical to involve her in such high-stakes projects at such a young age. In the quiet of his office one evening, Musk found himself staring at the notes he had made about Lily's future. The lines between his admiration for her intellect and his concern for her well-being had begun to blur. He didn't want to be the person who exploited her, but he couldn't deny the enormous potential she held. Musk leaned back in his chair and rubbed his eyes, feeling the weight of a decision that was quickly becoming much larger than anyone had anticipated. Should he give Lily the freedom to explore at her own pace, or should he take a more active role in guiding her talents for the good of humanity? His thoughts were interrupted when he heard a soft knock on the door. "Come in," he called, his voice tired. Adam walked into the room, a concerned expression on his face. "Elon, we need to talk." Musk sat up straighter, sensing the seriousness in Adam's voice. "What's going on?" "It's Lily," Adam began, sitting down across from Musk. "She's been getting strange requests from people at SpaceX. People want to push her further, faster. I don't know if they realize just how much pressure they're putting on her. She's not just a project, she's our daughter. And I'm worried." Musk exhaled slowly. He had been hoping to avoid this conversation, but deep down, he knew it was inevitable. I'm aware, Musk said quietly. And I don't want her to feel like a tool. We've made it clear that we're moving slowly with her, but I also know that her gifts are something the world has never seen before. And the world is going to want to use that. Adam looked at him, his voice firm. That's exactly why we need to be careful. I don't want Lily to be swallowed up by this world. She's still a kid, Elon. She deserves to be a kid. Musk leaned forward, meeting Adam's gaze. I understand. Believe me, I do. But we also can't ignore the fact that she could change everything. If we don't use her talents to their full potential, we might miss something important. Adam shook his head. We need to make sure she doesn't lose herself in the process. We can't let her grow up too fast. Musk stared at the papers in front of him, the weight of the decision bearing down on him. There was no easy answer, no clear path. But he knew one thing for sure, whatever happened, he had to protect Lily. She wasn't just the future of SpaceX. She was the future of humanity. And it was up to him, and to all of them, to make sure that future was one that allowed her to shine, not burn out. Lily's world had become a quiet battlefield of conflicting emotions, and Adam and Claire could sense it more with each passing day. She had started to retreat into herself, moments of uncertainty creeping into her once joyful demeanor. It wasn't obvious to everyone, but it was clear to her parents. They could see how the questions, the expectations, and the attention were slowly beginning to weigh her down, no matter how much they tried to shield her from it. One evening, after an unusually quiet dinner, Claire found Lily in her room, sitting by the window and staring at the stars. It was a familiar sight, one that had often filled Claire with a sense of wonder, watching her daughter gaze up at the sky as if she could see the future beyond the twinkling lights. Claire knocked softly on the door before entering. Hey, sweetie. What are you thinking about? Lily turned slowly, her big brown eyes reflecting a mixture of curiosity and concern. I think I understand the stars now, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Claire sat beside her on the bed, trying to keep the conversation light. Oh. What do you mean? Lily shrugged. They're all so far away. And even though they're beautiful, it's hard to reach them. I think maybe that's how I feel now. Like I'm far away from everything, even though I'm right here. Claire's heart clenched. She had been expecting this moment. The moment when her daughter, the child prodigy, would begin to recognize that the world around her was both extraordinary and overwhelming at once. Lily had always been ahead of her peers, but this was different. This was a burden of expectation that even her brilliant mind couldn't escape. You don't have to reach for the stars right now, Lily, Claire said gently. You can just enjoy looking at them. And if you want to go to space one day, you can do it when you're ready. But you don't have to do it all right now. Lily looked out the window again, her fingers tracing the cool glass. But what if I can? What if I'm the only one who can? Claire's mind raced, grappling with the weight of her daughter's words. She wasn't just a child, she was a force of nature. And that was both beautiful and terrifying. Elon Musk, meanwhile, was facing his own set of challenges. After his conversation with Adam, he had been more thoughtful about how Lily was involved in the SpaceX projects. The last thing he wanted was to overwhelm her or turn her into some sort of publicity tool. But the desire to tap into her abilities was undeniable. He knew that the potential for innovation was unmatched with a mind like hers. Despite his internal struggles, Musk remained convinced that Lily was destined for greatness. Yet, he couldn't ignore the weight of responsibility he felt, not just as a businessman, but as someone who had become a guiding figure in Lily's life. He had seen the pressure she was under, and he couldn't help but feel a sense of guilt for inadvertently contributing to it. One late evening, after finishing a meeting with his engineers, Musk sat in his office, staring out at the city lights. His mind kept drifting back to Lily. She was still so young, and yet her intellect was so vast, it seemed to be pulling everyone into its orbit. As much as he wanted to help her, he also knew that the demands of the world could be relentless. And what if, despite all of his best intentions, he was pushing her too far, too fast. His phone buzzed on the desk, pulling him from his thoughts. It was a message from Claire. "Elon, we need to talk. I think Lily's starting to feel the weight of everything. She's not herself lately." Musk read the message over a few times. It was as if Claire's words had pierced right through him. He had been so focused on the possibilities, on how Lily could change the world, that he hadn't stopped to think about what it was doing to her. The next day, Musk called Adam and Claire to a private meeting. He had arranged it in one of the quiet, unused conference rooms at SpaceX, far from the noise of the labs and the buzz of rocket talk. It was just the three of them, sitting around a table, the weight of the conversation settling over them. "I've been thinking," Musk began, leaning forward, his eyes intense. "I think we need to step back a bit. I've been pushing for her to be more involved in the projects here, but I don't know if that's the right approach anymore. She's just a child. We need to make sure she isn't losing herself in all this." Adam nodded, his face relieved. "I've been saying the same thing. She's not ready for this kind of pressure. No matter how brilliant she is, she needs time to grow. Time to just be a kid." Claire looked at both of them, her expression softening. "It's hard. I want her to have the opportunity to shine, to reach her full potential. But I also want her to be happy. I don't want her to feel like her worth is tied to what she can do for others." Musk sat back in his chair, rubbing his hands together. "I know. I've been talking to the team here, and we've decided to dial things back. We won't make any more public appearances, no more pushing her to solve impossible problems. For now, we'll keep her involvement to a minimum. She can still learn, still explore, but on her own terms." Adam's shoulders relaxed, but his eyes remained filled with concern. "And what if she wants to do more? What if she wants to help solve the big problems?" "That's the thing," Musk replied, his voice quieter now. "She will want to do more. She already does. But we can't force her. She needs to come to that decision herself." Claire took a deep breath, her gaze moving to the side where the sunlight filtered through the windows. "We'll support her no matter what. But we also need to protect her. It's the only thing that really matters." Musk nodded. "I agree. Let's make sure she knows that whatever she does, it's okay. That she's enough, just as she is." That evening, as the sun set over the city, Musk stood on the balcony of his office, looking out at the sprawling lights of Los Angeles. The weight of the decision still lingered, but he felt a small sense of peace settling in. He knew this wasn't the end of the journey, far from it. But it was a step toward ensuring that Lily's brilliance wasn't swallowed by the world around her. She had the potential to change everything, yes. But she also deserved to be a child. And as her protector, that was the most important thing of all. For a while, things seemed to settle down. Lily's routine became more manageable, and though she still showed an undeniable brilliance, her life began to regain a sense of normalcy. Adam and Claire found themselves more connected to their daughter, not as a symbol of scientific potential, but as a little girl who still found joy in the simple pleasures of life. The distractions of SpaceX's pressure had faded, and Lily had taken to spending more time outside, playing in the backyard, drawing pictures of rockets and astronauts in chalk on the pavement. Her parents noticed that, with each passing day, she seemed a little more carefree, a little less burdened. But Elon Musk couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. Despite his decision to pull back, he couldn't ignore the subtle changes he'd noticed in Lily's behavior. She wasn't as eager to come to the SpaceX headquarters anymore, and when she did, her curiosity seemed to have lost its spark. She still had that incredible ability to understand complex ideas, but there was a quiet resignation about her now, a sense that something was weighing heavily on her young mind. Musk had a meeting with his top engineers one morning, discussing progress on the next generation rocket design, but his thoughts kept drifting back to Lily. It wasn't just the technical challenges that consumed him, it was the ethical dilemma that lingered like a shadow. Was he doing enough to protect her? Was pulling back truly the right thing to do, or was he simply avoiding the inevitable? As the meeting broke up, Musk found himself wandering the halls of SpaceX, lost in thought. It was then that he bumped into Claire, who had come by to pick up Lily after her visit to the lab. "Elon, can I talk to you for a moment?" Claire asked, her expression concerned. "Of course," Musk replied, motioning for her to follow him to a quiet corner of the building. "I think we need to have another conversation about Lily," Claire began, her voice low but firm. "She's not okay, Elon. I've been watching her closely. She's quiet, withdrawn. I think she's starting to feel like there's something missing, something she's not getting from us." Musk felt a pang of guilt. "What do you mean?" "She's become disconnected," Claire said softly, her eyes betraying her worry. "She's not the same little girl she was before all this. It's like she's lost that spark, the one that made her so. Lily. She's holding herself back, like she's afraid to do too much. I think she's scared." Musk took a deep breath, feeling the weight of Claire's words. "I've noticed it too," he admitted. "But I wasn't sure what to do. I thought by giving her space, I could help her find her way back." Claire's eyes met his, a glimmer of sadness behind them. "Elon, I think what she needs isn't more space. She needs direction. She needs to know that it's okay to be herself, that it's okay to be brilliant and still have a childhood. She's not just some project or some experiment." Musk swallowed hard. "I know. I've been trying to give her the freedom she deserves, but I didn't want to push her too much. I didn't want to ruin her, make her feel like she's a tool, like she's being used." Claire nodded. "I get that. I know you care about her. But maybe what she needs isn't less of us, but more." Later that evening, after their conversation, Musk returned to his office, his thoughts heavy with the weight of what Claire had said. He sat at his desk and reviewed the plans for the new spacecraft again, though his mind was far from the diagrams and equations. He found himself thinking about the young girl he had met all those years ago, the girl whose curiosity had been insatiable, whose laughter had been infectious. Where had that little girl gone? Was it the world around her that had changed, or had she simply outgrown the idea of innocence in the face of such immense expectations? His phone rang, snapping him out of his thoughts. It was Adam. "Elon, I've been thinking," Adam said, his voice tense. "I've noticed something in Lily, and I think you should know. She's been asking some tough questions lately. Really tough ones. Questions about what's real, what's possible, what's worth fighting for. It's as if she's searching for something deeper. And I'm worried. I don't think she's just struggling with what's expected of her. I think she's struggling with something inside herself." Musk rubbed his temples, frustration building. "What do you mean? What is she looking for?" "I don't know," Adam replied, sounding troubled. "But I think she's starting to feel the weight of everything, her abilities, the expectations, the pressure, and it's all coming together in a way that's making her question everything. I think she might be at a crossroads. And we need to be there for her, to help her figure it out." Musk was silent for a moment, letting Adam's words sink in. "You're right. We can't let her fall into this spiral alone. She needs us more than ever, and we need to help her find her way back before it's too late." The next morning, Musk made a decision. He would change the course of things for Lily. He had been so focused on protecting her from the world that he had forgotten about the most important thing: she needed to feel like she had a choice in her own destiny. If there was anything he had learned over the years, it was that the greatest innovators, the greatest minds, didn't just follow a predetermined path. They forged their own. He reached out to Claire and Adam, inviting them to a family meeting that afternoon. It was time for a new approach, one that was rooted in support, understanding, and most importantly, trust. Lily had always been more than a prodigy to him, she was a symbol of something much bigger, a future where children like her could dream, explore, and be whatever they wanted to be, without the weight of the world on their shoulders. And if there was one thing Elon Musk had learned in his life, it was that the impossible was only impossible until someone proved it otherwise. The afternoon meeting at SpaceX was set for 3 p.m. Elon Musk, Claire, and Adam sat in a small conference room, a stark contrast to the bustling laboratories and workshops of SpaceX. The room was quiet, almost too quiet. There were no plans to review, no prototypes to discuss. Today, it wasn't about rockets or engineering. It was about Lily. Elon sat at the head of the table, his fingers tapping rhythmically against the polished wood. His face was a mix of determination and uncertainty. Beside him, Claire's expression was soft yet tinged with concern. Adam sat across from them, his body language tense, his eyes occasionally flicking toward the door as though expecting someone to walk in with a quick solution. There was no quick solution, though. They all knew that. "I've been thinking a lot about what you both said," Musk started, his voice calm but heavy. "About Lily. I've been so focused on the future, on her potential, that I haven't stopped to think about how she's feeling right now. How she's struggling." Claire nodded, her eyes filled with both sadness and resolve. "She's scared, Elon. She's afraid of what's expected of her, and it's only getting worse. We need to show her that she can take her time, make her own decisions, and that it's okay to not have it all figured out. I think she feels trapped, like she has to keep pushing and proving herself, even when she doesn't want to." Musk leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms, his gaze distant. "I'm starting to see that now. I think I've been too focused on giving her opportunities to prove herself to the world, forgetting that she needs to prove herself to herself first." Adam spoke up, his voice low but firm. "Lily's not like us. She doesn't see the world in the same way. She doesn't need to change the world to be happy. She needs to be free, to explore at her own pace, without the burden of everyone's expectations hanging over her. We all need to give her that space." Musk let out a long breath, rubbing his eyes as though trying to clear the fog from his mind. "I think you're both right. But what if she feels like she's failing if she steps back? What if she thinks that because of her gift, she has to do something extraordinary?" "That's what we're here for," Claire said softly, her eyes locking with Musk's. "We need to help her see that being extraordinary doesn't mean she has to carry the weight of the world. She's extraordinary simply by being herself." The conversation hung in the air, as though everyone in the room was waiting for some kind of breakthrough. It was a moment of raw honesty, a moment of clarity. They were no longer talking about what was best for the world, they were talking about what was best for Lily. "Okay," Musk said, finally breaking the silence. "We'll start with the basics. No more pushing her into situations she's not ready for. No more expectations. I want her to feel safe, feel like she has control over her own life." Adam smiled, relieved. "That's a good start." But Claire's gaze softened further, and she spoke with a quiet urgency. "It's not just about the big decisions, Elon. We need to make sure that Lily knows it's okay to make mistakes. To be vulnerable. We can't shield her from the world completely. But we have to let her know that it's okay to fall, as long as she gets back up." Musk nodded slowly. The weight of the responsibility he felt was immense, but in that moment, he realized that the greatest gift he could give Lily wasn't space technology, wasn't fame, or recognition, it was unconditional support. The freedom to choose her own path. Later that evening, Musk visited the house where Lily, Claire, and Adam lived. The sunset was beginning to paint the sky in shades of pink and orange, and Lily was outside, sitting on the swing in the backyard, her legs tucked underneath her as she gently rocked back and forth. Musk paused for a moment, watching her. There was something so pure about the way she looked at the world, something that had been clouded recently by the demands of others. But tonight, there was a sense of calm in the air, a stillness that Musk hadn't seen in her for a long time. He approached her slowly, taking a seat on the edge of the swing next to her. "Mind if I join you?" he asked. Lily looked up, her expression tentative but curious. "I guess not," she said quietly, scooting over to make space for him. The two of them sat in silence for a few moments, the swing creaking gently in the evening breeze. Musk glanced over at Lily, unsure of how to start the conversation. He'd been thinking a lot about how to approach her, how to make her feel seen and heard without overwhelming her. "You know," Musk began softly, "I've been thinking about you a lot lately." Lily turned her head toward him, her eyes searching his face. "Why?" "Because I want to make sure you're okay," he said, his voice sincere. "You've got this incredible mind, and I know how much you can do, but I don't want you to feel like you have to do everything at once. It's okay to take your time. It's okay to just be." Lily's brow furrowed. "But I feel like I have to do something. Like I have to prove that I'm important. That I'm not just wasting my time." Musk took a deep breath. This was the moment. "You don't have to prove anything, Lily. You already are important. You don't have to be the best at everything, or fix everything, or solve every problem. Just being you, that's enough." Lily sat still, her face reflecting a mixture of uncertainty and understanding. She looked out at the setting sun, her small fingers curling into the soft fabric of her jacket. "Do you really think so?" she asked quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Musk smiled gently. "I know so. And I promise, no matter what you choose to do, I'll be here. You don't have to carry the weight of the world alone." Lily didn't respond immediately. She just sat there, the swing gently swaying as the last light of the day disappeared beyond the horizon. For the first time in weeks, she seemed at peace. That night, as Musk left the house, he couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. Maybe it wasn't about changing the world or creating the next big breakthrough. Maybe it was about something simpler, something more profound. The world would wait. But for now, Lily needed to find her own way. And he would help her do that, no expectations, no pressure, just the space to be herself. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The next few weeks unfolded in a way that none of them could have predicted. After the heart-to-heart conversation, the change was palpable. Lily, though still deeply intelligent, began to let go of the weight she had carried for so long. She started spending more time with her parents in a way that felt lighter, more organic. There were no more overwhelming expectations looming over her. Instead, there was room for play, for exploration, for the simple pleasures of childhood that had previously seemed to elude her. She no longer rushed through her studies, no longer felt pressure to be a perfectionist. Instead, she took her time, asking questions not for the sake of proving herself, but for the joy of discovery. She had returned to drawing pictures, this time not just rockets and astronauts, but animals, castles, and vast landscapes. There was a particular drawing of a unicorn soaring across the sky that she was especially proud of, a symbol of the freedom she was beginning to feel. Elon watched from the sidelines, proud of the progress but constantly aware of the underlying complexity of Lily's nature. He knew she had extraordinary potential, but now, for the first time, he understood that it wasn't about what she could achieve for the world, it was about what she could achieve for herself. One afternoon, as Musk sat in his office, reviewing some SpaceX project reports, he received a message from Claire. It was simple, but its meaning was clear: Lily wants to show you something. Intrigued, Musk walked out of his office and made his way to the house. When he arrived, he found Lily in the backyard, standing beside a large wooden board that had been set up as an easel. She looked up as he approached, her eyes sparkling with the same excitement he had seen years ago when she first showed him her fascination with rockets. "Dad, look. I made something," Lily said, her voice full of energy. Musk leaned in closer, his gaze falling on the large canvas. At first glance, it seemed like just another one of her abstract drawings, colors, shapes, and designs that were almost impossible to decipher. But as he looked longer, he started to see it: a spaceship soaring through the stars, a detailed model of a rocket, but there was something else, a series of interconnected gears and mechanisms, all tied together in a seamless, almost organic flow. It was a design, but it wasn't just a rocket. It was an idea, a vision. Lily stepped back, her fingers slightly trembling. I was thinking. Maybe instead of designing a rocket the way everyone else does, we could make it more flexible. Like it could change shape depending on where it needs to go, kind of like a living thing. I want to call it the living rocket, something that grows as it flies. What do you think? Musk stood frozen for a moment, his heart racing. This was it. This was the spark he had been waiting for. A concept that went beyond the traditional, a radical idea that defied convention. It was brilliance, but it was also something new, something entirely fresh. For the first time in weeks, Musk felt the old excitement coursing through him again. It wasn't about a mission or a project, it was about a child's imagination, unhindered by the constraints of the world. It was a new kind of thinking, the kind that had driven every great advancement in human history. And Lily had just taken that first step into uncharted territory. Lily, he said slowly, his voice full of awe, this is incredible. I can't even imagine where you're going with this idea. You're thinking in ways that no one else has even considered. You know that, right? Lily smiled, a small, shy smile. You really think so? I know so, Musk said firmly. You're onto something big here. This is exactly the kind of thinking we need. And I want to help you take it further. The next few days were filled with brainstorming sessions, both formal and informal. Musk, Claire, and Adam encouraged Lily to continue developing her idea, asking questions, giving her the freedom to explore all the possibilities. There were no deadlines, no pressure to produce something immediately. Instead, they approached it like an adventure, an exploration of something that could change the future. And as Lily continued to develop the concept of the living rocket, her excitement began to grow. She spent hours sketching new designs, testing different materials, and considering how to make her idea come to life. Elon knew that Lily's idea wasn't just about building a better rocket, it was about reshaping the way they thought about space travel. She wasn't just solving problems, she was asking questions no one else had dared to ask. One night, after a particularly long day of sketching and discussing possibilities, Lily looked up at her father. There was a quiet intensity in her eyes. Dad, she said, I think I've figured out how to make it work. Musk raised an eyebrow, intrigued. How? Lily grinned. What if we use biomimicry? Like, plants. You know how some plants can change shape to get more sunlight or adapt to their environment? What if we could build something that could do the same thing in space? A spacecraft that adapts, grows, and evolves depending on where it's going. We could use materials that react to temperature, pressure, and energy levels. It would be a whole new way to think about space travel. Musk felt a surge of pride. Lily wasn't just thinking outside the box, she had thrown the box out entirely. She was thinking in terms of biology, nature, and systems that could evolve and adapt, just like living organisms. It was a revolutionary concept, and it would take years for anyone to catch up to her. You're onto something, Lily, Musk said, his voice thick with admiration. This is more than a breakthrough. This is a whole new era for space exploration. Lily beamed. You think so? I know so, Musk replied. And I can't wait to help you make it real. As the weeks turned into months, Musk became more and more invested in Lily's idea. They began to bring in some of the brightest minds at SpaceX, but instead of trying to control the process, Musk gave them the freedom to follow Lily's lead. This wasn't about imposing an adult's vision on her, it was about creating an environment where Lily's creativity could truly flourish. The living rocket was still in its early stages, but the team had already started developing some preliminary models. The materials Lily had suggested were experimental, but they held immense potential. And as time went on, the idea grew, becoming more tangible, more real. Lily's journey wasn't just about building a rocket. It was about rediscovering her voice, her independence, and her belief in the impossible. The story of the living rocket would soon become something far bigger than anyone could have anticipated, something that would inspire generations to come. As the months passed, the living rocket concept grew from a mere sketch on paper to something far more tangible. The team at SpaceX, initially skeptical, quickly realized that Lily's unconventional approach had the potential to revolutionize space travel. While they had yet to build anything truly functional, the idea itself began to stir the imaginations of engineers and scientists alike. There was something compelling about the notion of a spacecraft that could adapt, evolve, and think for itself, just like a living organism. Lily's designs were unlike anything the world had ever seen. While most rockets were rigid, designed with materials that had only one function, safety and speed, Lily's vision was far more flexible. She wanted the spacecraft to adapt to its environment, to grow and change based on what it encountered. It wasn't just about getting from point A to point B, it was about a spacecraft that could learn and adjust itself for any journey, any challenge. The first model was set to be revealed soon. The small test spacecraft, made of experimental materials, was scheduled for its first flight. The engineers were anxious, the tension in the air palpable as the countdown clock ticked down. This wasn't just another rocket launch. This was the start of something revolutionary, and all eyes were on Lily. She stood near the launch pad, her hands trembling slightly, but her face resolute. Elon, standing beside her, noticed her quiet determination. She had come so far since the first conversation they had in the backyard, when all they had was a concept and a dream. Now, she was on the verge of changing the course of human history. "You okay?" Elon asked, looking down at her. Lily nodded, her eyes fixed on the spacecraft. "I'm nervous, but excited. I think we've done everything we can. Now it's time to see if it works." "You've done more than anyone could have imagined," Elon said, his voice full of pride. "You've given us a new way to think about space travel, and that's no small thing." Lily's eyes softened. "Thanks, Dad. But we're not there yet. We don't know if it'll work." "Not really." Elon smiled, bending down to her level. "That's true. But whether it works or not, you've already proven that thinking differently is the only way to make real progress. You've already started something big." The engineers, Claire, and Adam gathered around them, each one with their own mixture of excitement and apprehension. The spacecraft, a sleek structure unlike any rocket that had come before, stood on the launch pad, gleaming under the harsh lights of the testing area. It was ready. The countdown began, and with each passing second, the tension mounted. It was as though the whole world had stopped to watch the result of Lily's dream take flight. 3, 2, 1. The engines roared to life, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the spacecraft began to rise, inch by inch, defying gravity in a way no one thought was possible. But then, something extraordinary happened. The craft seemed to pulse, its surface shifting ever so slightly, as though responding to its environment. A faint hum filled the air as the spacecraft accelerated into the sky, its shape subtly adjusting as it gained altitude. Gasps filled the air. The spacecraft was alive in a way no one had anticipated. It wasn't just a machine, it was evolving as it flew. Lily's face lit up, her mouth open in astonishment. "It's working," she whispered, almost in disbelief. "It's really working." Elon's heart swelled with pride, but even more than that, he felt something else, something deeper. This wasn't just a victory for Lily, or for SpaceX, it was a turning point for humanity. If this technology worked, it could change the entire way people thought about travel, not just in space, but across the world. The potential was limitless. For the next 10 minutes, the spacecraft continued to soar, adapting and shifting, moving effortlessly through the sky. It wasn't the smoothest flight, and there were plenty of hiccups along the way, but it was a success, an undeniable success. When it finally landed, gently, almost too gently, back on Earth, the team erupted into applause. Engineers ran toward the spacecraft, shouting in excitement, but Lily stood still, her gaze still fixed on the now quiet craft. She had done it. Against all odds, she had done it. Elon walked over to her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You've changed everything," he said quietly. "This is just the beginning, Lily. Just the beginning." Lily's eyes met his, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she smiled, truly smiled. It was a smile of relief, of accomplishment, and most importantly, of freedom. She had proved to herself that she didn't need to fit into anyone else's mold. She had carved out her own path, and it had led her here, to a moment of undeniable greatness. The news of the successful test flight spread like wildfire, and within hours, journalists, scientists, and enthusiasts flooded the media with praise and questions. It was no longer a secret. Lily's concept for the living rocket was on everyone's lips. But the real work had just begun. Elon knew that they needed to take this technology further, but they couldn't rush it. The living rocket was still in its infancy. There were countless challenges ahead, from refining the materials to ensuring the craft could handle the extreme conditions of space. And Lily, though elated by the success, was already thinking ahead, pushing herself to solve the next problem. The pressure on her was still there, but now, she had the confidence to face it. The next few weeks saw intense planning and development, as the team at SpaceX worked tirelessly to take the next steps. Elon, Claire, Adam, and Lily spent hours in the lab, discussing materials, testing prototypes, and brainstorming new ideas. They were no longer just a family, they were a team, united in their mission. The world began to take notice of Lily, too. People were fascinated by the young girl who had reimagined space travel. But despite the growing attention, Elon made sure that Lily remained grounded. The journey was far from over, and she needed to continue focusing on what mattered most, the next step. As the days went by, Lily grew more confident in her role as a leader. The weight of her gift didn't feel as heavy anymore. She had learned to trust herself, to trust the process, and most importantly, to trust the people around her. She wasn't alone in this journey. And as they looked toward the future, they knew this was only the beginning. The road ahead would be filled with challenges, but together, they were ready to face them. The success of the first test flight was a turning point, but it was also a catalyst for a whole new set of challenges. The world had seen the living rocket in action, and the media buzzed with excitement. They had watched a child, barely old enough to grasp the full weight of her vision, change the future of space travel in a matter of minutes. But with that success came expectations, the kind of pressure that could crush even the most seasoned experts. Lily had barely begun to process the magnitude of what had happened when the questions started flooding in. Invitations to conferences, interviews, and panels came pouring in from all corners of the globe. Every major space agency and tech giant was eager to understand how such a young mind had come up with a concept that could alter humanity's place in the universe. The world wanted answers, and they wanted them now. As the days passed, Lily found herself buried in a sea of requests, her quiet time in the lab slowly being replaced by appearances and media interviews. Though she had always dreamed of being recognized for her work, she was beginning to feel overwhelmed. She didn't want to be known for just being the child genius who invented the living rocket. She wanted to be known for the ideas she created, for the way she thought, and for how she pushed the boundaries of space travel. "I'm not just a mascot," Lily muttered to herself one night, staring out the window of her room as the bright city lights of Los Angeles flickered below. "I want to be part of the change." Elon, who had been keeping a close eye on her, knocked gently on her door before entering. He could sense the growing discomfort in her. There had been a time when she thrived on the recognition, but now, it seemed to weigh heavily on her. "You okay?" Elon asked, sitting beside her. Lily let out a long sigh. "I just want to keep working, Dad. I don't want to be the story. I want to make the story. But every time I turn around, it's about me, and not about the ideas." It's like everyone's expecting me to be something I'm not. Elon nodded, understanding her frustration. You're right. This is about the ideas. But sometimes, people need to see the person behind the ideas to understand what makes them so special. It's natural for them to focus on you right now. But I promise you, the real story is in the work we do next. Lily didn't say anything for a moment, letting his words sink in. She knew he was right. The media frenzy was just a distraction, something she would have to learn to navigate. But deep down, she knew the true work was just beginning. I just don't want to let anyone down, Lily whispered. Elon smiled softly. You're already doing something incredible. And you're not alone in this. We're in this together, every step of the way. Despite the overwhelming attention, the team at SpaceX remained focused on refining Lily's original concept. They knew they had something extraordinary on their hands, but it wasn't going to be easy to bring the living rocket to its full potential. There were still so many questions to answer, so many unknowns to explore. But with each passing day, they were closer to unlocking the next phase of space travel. Lily's role, however, was shifting. While she was still the heart of the project, her involvement in the technical details began to lessen as the team expanded to accommodate the growing scope of the project. Engineers, biologists, and materials scientists from around the world were now involved, each one eager to contribute their expertise. Elon's vision for the project had always been expansive, but now it was turning into something far more collaborative, a global effort to push the boundaries of what humanity could accomplish in space. Despite this, Lily remained deeply involved in the conceptual side of things, continuing to refine her designs and offer insights into the innovative materials she wanted to use. There was something invigorating about the way she thought, her ideas flowed freely, unburdened by convention. She wasn't confined by what was possible right now. She was designing for the future, a future that hadn't yet been written. But even as the project took shape, the media pressure continued to grow. Journalists began to write about Lily not just as a child prodigy, but as the face of the next era in space exploration. Some praised her, while others questioned her abilities, arguing that a child had no place leading a project of this magnitude. There were whispers in the scientific community about whether she could really carry the weight of such an ambitious undertaking. Lily was well aware of the skepticism. She could hear the subtle comments during interviews, the unspoken doubts in the voices of the journalists. But she refused to let it get to her. She had learned from Elon that the opinions of others didn't define her. What mattered was the work. What mattered was the vision. One afternoon, as she sat in the design lab, drawing new concepts for the living rocket's evolution, Claire entered, holding a tablet in her hand. Her expression was neutral, but Lily could see the concern in her eyes. "Hey, what's up?" Lily asked, not looking up from her sketchpad. "Lily," Claire began gently, "I need you to see this." Lily stopped what she was doing, finally looking up. Claire handed her the tablet, which displayed a headline, "Is the Child Genius Overhyped? Why we should be cautious about Lily's rocket." Lily's heart sank as she read the article, which was filled with harsh criticism. It didn't just question the technology, it doubted her ability to see it through to completion. The writer seemed to paint her as a novelty, a fleeting story that would fade away as quickly as it had come. Lily didn't say anything at first. She simply stared at the screen, her mind racing. But then, she set the tablet down and turned to Claire. "You know what, Claire," she said, her voice steady. "I don't care about this article. They don't know me. They don't know my ideas. And they definitely don't know what we're capable of." Claire smiled. "That's the spirit. You're not just a headline. You're a revolution." Lily felt a weight lift off her shoulders. The media and the critics could say whatever they wanted. But she had the power to prove them wrong. And she was going to do it. With renewed determination, Lily returned to her sketches, adding new details to her designs, imagining new ways the rocket could adapt, new ways it could evolve. The work would be hard, but that was exactly why she wanted it. She wasn't just building something for the future of space exploration, she was building a legacy, one that would stand the test of time. Elon, who had been quietly observing from the doorway, smiled. "What are you working on now?" Lily looked up, her eyes glinting with excitement. "The next stage of the living rocket. This time, we make it even more alive. It's going to be able to heal itself." Elon's heart skipped a beat. He had always known Lily was destined for greatness, but moments like this made him realize just how much she had already accomplished. This wasn't just about rockets anymore, it was about reimagining what technology could do for humanity. The weeks following the publication of the harsh article were a whirlwind. Despite the criticism, Lily remained undeterred. If anything, it made her more determined to push the boundaries even further. She spent long hours in the lab, refining her concepts, testing materials, and working with the team to address the growing challenges. The living rocket was a living, evolving concept, but it was still far from perfection. Every breakthrough was accompanied by new complications. But Lily was no longer intimidated by the enormity of it all. Instead, she embraced it. The idea of a self-healing spacecraft had been a bold one, even by her standards, but she was convinced it was possible. She had already begun designing materials that could regenerate after damage, and the notion of a rocket that could repair itself during a journey seemed like a natural evolution of the living rocket concept. A spacecraft that could adapt to its environment, not just during flight but in the face of obstacles, was a vision that could truly change space travel forever. She brought this new idea to the team at SpaceX, and to her surprise, they didn't dismiss it. Instead, they were intrigued, eager to dive into the science behind it. But there was one catch: the technology to make self-healing materials a reality didn't exist yet. At least not in the way she envisioned. It would require inventing entirely new kinds of materials, advanced biotech systems, and, perhaps most daunting of all, complete rethinking of the way spacecraft were built. Claire, who had become one of Lily's closest collaborators, saw her dedication and the fire in her eyes. Self-healing rockets, Claire mused one evening as they sat together, discussing the new direction. That's not just revolutionary, that's groundbreaking. But it's also a hell of a challenge. We'll need a whole new approach to materials science. We're talking about biology, bioengineering, and AI all rolled into one. Lily nodded, her mind already racing. I know. But think about it. A rocket that can heal itself means fewer risks, fewer failures. It's the ultimate safety net. And once we crack it, we can expand the technology beyond just rockets. What if we could do it with buildings, cars, even medical implants? Claire's eyes widened. You really believe this can change the world, don't you? I believe it can. I'm not just designing a spacecraft, I'm designing the future. And I'm not going to let anyone tell me that it can't be done. Meanwhile, Elon had been quietly observing from the sidelines. He was proud of Lily's determination, but he knew that the road ahead would be anything but easy. They were diving into uncharted territory, and while Lily's brilliance had been the spark, it was going to take every ounce of their collective knowledge, time, and resources to make the self-healing spacecraft a reality. He sat down with Lily one afternoon, watching her as she scribbled notes, her eyes locked onto a complex diagram of materials and biotech integrations. You've got something big here, Lily, he said, his voice calm but serious. But it's not going to be quick. It's going to be slow. You've got to be prepared for setbacks. There will be moments where we think we've cracked it, only to find out we're back at square one. Lily looked up from her work, meeting her father's gaze. I know. But that's how progress happens. You don't get breakthroughs by playing it safe. We've got to push. We've got to break things, whether it's systems, ideas, or materials. It'll hurt at times, but in the end, it'll be worth it. Elon smiled. I have no doubt. As the months passed, the team at SpaceX began collaborating with top-tier scientists in fields far beyond their normal expertise. Engineers worked with biologists to understand the properties of self-healing materials, while experts in artificial intelligence were brought in to design the systems that would allow the spacecraft to learn from damage and repair itself. It wasn't just about building something that could survive space, it was about building something that could learn to protect itself, to adapt to the impossible conditions it would face on its journey. One evening, as Lily was reviewing some early-stage designs for the biotech integrations, she received a call from Claire. "Lily, you need to come to the lab." Now, Claire's voice crackled over the phone. There was an urgency to her tone that immediately caught Lily's attention. "What's going on?" Lily asked, grabbing her jacket and heading out the door. "It's the first test run of the self-healing material," Claire said. "We've got a prototype, and, well, you need to see it for yourself." Lily's heart raced as she rushed to the lab, her mind filled with questions. The self-healing materials had been a concept up until now, but this was the first time they were being tested in real conditions. She had no idea what to expect. Would it work? Or would it fail? When she arrived at the lab, Claire and the team were gathered around a large, transparent container. Inside was a sample of the self-healing material, a bioplastic-like substance embedded with nanobots that could repair damage by reactivating when exposed to a certain set of conditions. Lily approached the table, her breath held as Claire gestured to the sample. "Watch closely," Claire said, as she activated the test. A small, sharp object was driven into the material, puncturing it deeply. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the edges of the puncture began to shimmer. Tiny nanoparticles began to move along the surface, weaving together, and within moments, the puncture was sealed. The material looked as though it had never been damaged at all. Lily's eyes widened. "It's working. It's really working." Claire smiled. "It's just the first test, but we're on the right track." The team erupted into applause, but Lily couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. They had just taken a massive step forward. The impossible had become possible. And they were closer than ever to realizing her vision of the self-healing, living rocket. As they continued to refine the material and test its capabilities, the world began to take notice again. News outlets began to report on the progress being made in SpaceX's labs. The story of the self-healing spacecraft spread far beyond the world of space enthusiasts. People were starting to understand just how transformative this technology could be. But the pressure was mounting. The world expected results. And with every success, the stakes grew higher. Lily, for the first time in her life, truly understood the weight of innovation. Every day, she was closer to her dream, but the closer she got, the heavier the responsibility felt. She wasn't just building a rocket anymore. She was shaping the future of human exploration. And that was no small task. Lily felt the weight of her ambition like never before. Every day brought new breakthroughs, new triumphs, and new challenges, and it was becoming clear that this was no longer just a project, it was a movement. The world was watching, and she could feel its eyes on her as she worked tirelessly to make the living rocket more than just a dream. It was becoming a reality, but each step forward came with a deeper sense of responsibility. As the self-healing materials were refined and perfected, it became evident that they were ready for their next big test. The team at SpaceX had finally developed a prototype that they felt could withstand the brutal conditions of space, extreme temperatures, intense radiation, and the unpredictable nature of micrometeoroid impacts. But now came the true test: would the material actually perform under the conditions of space? Lily stood in the lab, staring at the mock-up of the spacecraft. The sleek design was a fusion of biology and engineering, with surfaces that seemed to pulse ever so slightly, as if the rocket itself was alive. Her heart beat faster with excitement. This was the moment they had been working for. This was what they had all dreamed of. Elon entered the room, his presence as steady and calming as ever. He had watched Lily grow into this extraordinary young innovator, and he had no doubt that she was on the brink of something world-changing. But he also knew that the path ahead would be anything but easy. The next steps could be monumental, but failure was always a possibility. You ready for this? Elon asked, his voice steady but full of pride. Lily nodded, her hands trembling slightly with anticipation. I think so. But there's still so much to learn. We'll learn it together, Elon replied with a reassuring smile. We've always done that. The test took place in the company's most advanced testing facility, a controlled environment that simulated the vacuum of space, complete with extreme temperatures and high-pressure scenarios. A massive machine was tasked with firing projectiles at the spacecraft's surface to simulate the impact of micrometeoroids. The team watched nervously as the machine powered up, sending the first of many projectiles towards the mock-up. The rocket's surface absorbed the impact, the self-healing material activating almost immediately, spreading the damage across its surface before beginning the repair process. The room was filled with anticipation as the damage began to vanish, and within moments, the rocket's surface looked as though it had never been hit at all. Unbelievable, Claire whispered, her eyes wide with amazement. Lily's gaze was fixed on the screen, her heart pounding as the tests continued. The next projectile hit, then the next, each time the material healing itself, faster and more efficiently with each impact. After the test was complete, the team erupted into applause. The material had passed with flying colors. It had withstood the harsh conditions of space and performed exactly as expected. For Lily, it was a moment of vindication. She had envisioned a rocket that could heal itself, and now, not only had she proved it possible, she had made it a reality. But as the applause died down, Lily's eyes remained locked on the test results. There was something she couldn't shake, a feeling that the success was only the beginning of a much larger journey. This breakthrough was massive, but there were still so many unanswered questions. Let's run it again, Lily said, her voice firm. Let's push it even further. What happens if we take it to the limit? Elon raised an eyebrow. You want to push it beyond the current tests? Yes, Lily replied, her determination palpable. I want to see what happens when we break it. I want to know how far we can go before it fails. Elon exchanged a glance with Claire, who simply nodded. All right, he said. Let's take it to the next level. The tests that followed were increasingly intense. The team subjected the self-healing material to extreme temperatures, extreme radiation, and deep impact tests. But each time, the material held up. With every challenge, the living rocket was proving itself to be more than just a concept, it was becoming a technological marvel. Yet, with each success came a growing sense of unease within Lily. The more they accomplished, the more she began to feel the pressure. What if they had overlooked something? What if the next test revealed a fatal flaw? What if, despite all their hard work, the dream would collapse? One evening, as the team celebrated another successful test, Lily found herself alone in the lab, staring at the schematics for the spacecraft. Her fingers traced over the designs, her mind racing with possibilities and worries alike. The rocket was ready, or so it seemed. But something gnawed at her, a feeling that she couldn't quite shake. What if we're not ready for this, she murmured to herself. Elon, who had noticed her absence from the celebration, walked into the lab. He could see the look on Lily's face and knew that she was wrestling with her thoughts again. Hey, he said gently, you've been at this for months. You've made something incredible. It's okay to take a breath. Lily didn't look up. What if it's not enough? What if we're pushing too hard too fast? Elon sat beside her. I know it's a lot. But remember, this isn't just your project. It's ours. And we've all been pushing to make this happen. You've proven what no one thought possible. Don't let fear of failure hold you back. Every great invention was born from risk. Lily finally looked at her father, his words sinking in. She knew he was right. They had come so far already. They had faced so many obstacles, but they were still standing. They were still moving forward. You're right, she said quietly. I just want to make sure we're ready for what comes next. I don't want to fail. And you won't, Elon assured her. You're not in this alone. We're all in this together. As the tests continued, the world began to take notice once again. News outlets ran stories about the success of the self-healing rocket, but this time, the tone had shifted. People were no longer questioning whether Lily's ideas were possible, they were starting to believe in them. The skeptics were growing fewer, and the possibilities were becoming clearer. Lily stood in front of a live broadcast one evening, preparing to present the results of the tests to the world. Her heart raced, not with fear, but with anticipation. This was the moment when everything she had worked for would be shared with the world. But as the camera turned on, she didn't feel nervous. She felt ready. Tonight, we take the next step in the evolution of space travel, Lily began, her voice steady. We've proven that a rocket can heal itself. But this is just the beginning. We are building something bigger than a rocket. We are building a future where technology learns, adapts, and protects humanity. The broadcast ended, and for the first time, Lily felt a true sense of accomplishment. They had done it. And now, there was no turning back. The next few months were a blur of activity. With the success of the self-healing material test, the SpaceX team had taken the next step in designing the prototype of the living rocket. The research labs were abuzz with excitement, and the pressure was on. Every small tweak and modification brought them closer to a future where space travel would be safer, more efficient, and sustainable. But as Lily walked through the lab, her mind buzzed with an unsettling feeling. While things were progressing on schedule, she couldn't help but wonder, had they really considered every possible scenario? Space exploration had always been fraught with risk, but now, with the prospect of using living technology to propel humanity to the stars, the stakes felt impossibly high. Would the world be ready for what they were about to do? Would they succeed? Her thoughts were interrupted when Elon approached her, his presence offering a steadying calm. He had watched her grow from a young girl full of ideas into a formidable force in the world of space technology. Yet, despite all the achievements, he knew how deeply the weight of it all rested on her shoulders. Lily, he began, offering her a slight smile, I know this journey has been harder than any of us could have imagined. But you've got something here that no one else does. You've created something that will change the world. Lily sighed, rubbing her eyes in exhaustion. I want to make sure we don't miss something critical. What if we've overlooked an unknown factor? I can't shake the feeling that we're on the edge of something huge, but something that could also collapse if we don't handle it carefully. Elon placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You've never backed down from a challenge. And neither have I. We're in this together, Lily. Whatever happens, we'll figure it out. Just remember, every great leap forward was met with fear. You're not alone in this. His words grounded her. She had always been able to count on her father's steady support, even when her doubts threatened to consume her. She nodded, a determined spark rekindling in her heart. Later that day, the team gathered for what would be a pivotal moment in the living rocket's development. A key component of the design was the bioengineered control system, the heart of the self-healing process. The nanobots, which had shown such promising results in earlier tests, now needed to be integrated into the spacecraft's navigation system. The engineers were ready for the integration. The code was set to upload into the rocket's control systems, and the process would begin with a test flight simulation. Lily stood in front of the console, her fingers hovering over the controls. She had overseen every stage of this process, but there was something about the idea of launching a spacecraft with a self-healing biotech system that gave her an uneasy sense of finality. Would it work as anticipated? The simulation began. The rocket systems powered up, lights flickering on and off as the nanobots activated within the structure of the ship. Lily watched intently, her breath held. The first test flight was critical. It was the moment when they would see if everything they had built would hold up in a real-world scenario. As the rocket launched into the simulated environment, the control system began adapting to the changing conditions. With each simulated failure, damage to the rocket's surface or malfunction in the navigation system, the biotech systems immediately kicked in, adjusting in real time to the conditions, repairing any damage. The first test was a success. The rocket had adapted quickly and flawlessly to the simulated hazards it faced. The nanobots healed the damaged sections of the craft in seconds, keeping it in flight and ensuring it didn't lose integrity or stability. The team erupted in cheers, exchanging high fives and hugs. "This is it," Claire shouted, her voice ringing with excitement. "We've done it." But Lily felt a strange quiet wash over her. She wasn't celebrating. Not yet. Yes, the test had been a success, but the true test was out there, in the unpredictable void of space. "You see," Elon said, his voice breaking through her reverie. "This is just the beginning." Lily turned to face him, the weight of the moment settling over her. "I know. But what if we're not ready for the real thing?" Elon's smile widened. "That's the whole point, Lily. We're ready because we've dared to be ready. The unknowns are always there, but it's our ability to adapt that will take us where we need to go." As the days passed, the excitement of the test continued to reverberate throughout SpaceX. News of the successful flight simulation had spread far and wide. But despite the overwhelming optimism surrounding the project, Lily remained hyper-focused on one thing: the upcoming live test launch. The time for simulations was over. It was now or never. The living rocket was going to be sent into space, and for the first time in human history, humanity would attempt to send a self-healing craft beyond the planet's atmosphere. But before that could happen, the final preparations needed to be made. Lily found herself in front of a massive screen displaying the final schematic of the living rocket. The biotech integration had been a remarkable success, but the pressure was mounting. Could they really achieve a full-scale launch with the self-healing material holding up under the harshest conditions? Could the system adapt quickly enough to space's unpredictable challenges? The countdown was already ticking down. In a matter of days, the world would witness history, or, as Lily feared, failure. On the day of the launch, a crowd of reporters, engineers, and space enthusiasts gathered at the SpaceX headquarters. The massive rocket stood tall on the launch pad, poised for greatness. Lily stood behind the control desk, hands sweating, but her mind was as sharp as ever. Elon stood beside her, his presence steady and reassuring. "Lily," Elon said quietly, "you've already changed the game. But this will be the next level." Lily looked up at him, a sense of calm washing over her. "I think we're ready." She turned to the control board, fingers hovering over the launch button. With one final breath, she pressed it. The roar of the engines echoed across the field, and the living rocket lifted off, soaring into the sky. The world watched in awe as it disappeared into the clouds, leaving only a trail of smoke and the promise of a future that would be forever changed. The world watched as the living rocket, with all its bioengineered brilliance, shot toward the heavens. The roar of its engines reverberated across the SpaceX launch site, the crowd's collective breath held tight as they witnessed history unfolding before their eyes. Lily stood at the control desk, staring at the live feed, her heart pounding with each passing second. She could feel the weight of the moment, the immense pressure of not only her own expectations but the hopes of everyone who had ever believed in her vision. As the rocket ascended, the gravity of what they were attempting became undeniable. This wasn't just a test anymore, it was the dawn of a new era. And as the rocket soared higher into the sky, Lily couldn't shake the sense that they were standing on the precipice of something monumental. "Altitude, 30,000 feet, Claire's voice crackled over the intercom. "Everything is looking good so far. All systems are green." Lily nodded, but the weight in her chest didn't lift. They were heading into the unknown, into the vast, unforgiving expanse of space. Space exploration had always been risky, but now, with their self-healing technology, the stakes were higher than ever. Could they truly conquer the chaos of space, or would their bold vision crumble in the face of cosmic forces? The rocket continued to climb, its sleek form disappearing into the vastness of the sky, leaving only the trail of exhaust in its wake. Lily's fingers gripped the edge of the desk as they approached the final phase, the point where the rocket would break through the Earth's atmosphere and enter the vacuum of space. The rocket's biotech systems had been tested under controlled conditions, but this was real. The living rocket would face challenges in space that they couldn't simulate: radiation, micrometeoroids, the cold vacuum of space. There were still so many unknowns. Reaching outer space in 5, 4, 3, Claire's voice was steady, but there was a subtle thrill in it. 2, 1. And then, as the countdown finished, the rocket breached the edge of Earth's atmosphere, emerging into the black void of space. The team erupted into applause, but Lily barely heard it. Her eyes were fixed on the data streaming across the screen in front of her. This was where the real challenge began. The rocket's self-healing systems were already at work, adjusting to the new environment. Tiny micrometeor impacts began to register on the screen, insignificant at first, but constant. A ripple of excitement buzzed through the room as Lily watched the rocket's surface adapt. The nanobots were doing their job, repairing the tiniest breaches with uncanny precision. The material was regenerating, growing stronger with each test. It was working. The team continued to monitor the data, the rocket traveling deeper into the silence of space. For a few minutes, everything seemed to be running smoothly. The self-healing process was flawless. But then, the unthinkable happened. A sudden, intense burst of radiation from the sun hit the spacecraft. It was stronger than anything they had predicted during their simulations. The rocket began to wobble, its surface shimmering in response to the solar radiation. Lily's heart raced as the control systems began to register errors. "Radiation levels are off the charts," Claire shouted. "The material is absorbing as much as it can, but can it handle this?" Lily interrupted, her voice sharp with urgency. "I don't know. It's too much for the simulation data to cover," Claire replied, her fingers flying over the keyboard. Lily's mind raced. The radiation levels had overwhelmed the self-healing material more quickly than they had anticipated. This was the moment of truth. The rocket was too far from Earth for them to intervene directly, and there was no way to predict how the self-healing system would respond to this level of stress. She had pushed the technology as far as it could go, but now, it was time to trust in what they had created. The rocket shuddered in space, its surface flickering. The nanobots were working, but they were struggling. The material began to break down in areas they hadn't accounted for. The repairs were too slow to keep up with the damage. "Elon, what do we do?" Lily's voice was strained, her eyes wide as she watched the situation unfold in real time. This could be it. Elon had been watching the data from a separate station in the control room. His face, usually calm under pressure, had tightened with concern. He stood up, walking over to Lily, his voice low and steady. "We trust the technology," he said. "The nanobots are learning from the damage. They'll adapt, just like they have in every other test." Lily didn't reply immediately. She watched the screen, her mind trying to process everything that was happening. Could the system adapt in time? Would they lose everything they had worked for in an instant? Then, something remarkable happened. The rocket, its surface shimmering under the harsh radiation, seemed to stabilize. The nanobots accelerated their repair process. The material began to regenerate at an unprecedented rate, adjusting to the radiation levels with stunning efficiency. It was as though the rocket had absorbed the threat and learned to counteract it. "It's working," Claire whispered in disbelief. "It's actually healing faster than it's taking damage." The team watched in awe as the rocket's surface glowed brighter, the self-healing material repairing itself at a pace they had never seen before. It was responding to the extreme conditions, adapting to the radiation and repairing the damage in real time. The nanobots were learning, evolving with each passing moment, pushing the boundaries of what they thought possible. Lily let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. The rocket was not only surviving the radiation, it was thriving. In that moment, she knew that they had truly achieved something groundbreaking. The rest of the mission passed without further incident. The rocket continued to orbit Earth, sending back data that would reshape humanity's understanding of space travel. The material's ability to heal, adapt, and learn in real time had proved to be more than just a theoretical idea, it had become a tangible, powerful tool for the future of space exploration. The team had done it. Against all odds, the living rocket had conquered the void. But as Lily stood before the data screens, watching the rocket soar through the cosmos, she couldn't shake a feeling that lingered in the back of her mind. This success was monumental, yes. But the future was still unwritten, and the challenges ahead were as vast as the universe itself. They had pushed the limits of technology, but how far could they go? Elon approached her again, his voice calm. "You did it, Lily. You really did it." Lily turned to him, her eyes filled with awe and relief. "We did it, Dad. We really did it." But in her heart, Lily knew that this was just the beginning. When the living rocket stabilized in orbit, the control room burst into celebration. Champagne was popped, people were hugging and crying, it was a moment no one in that room would ever forget. But outside those walls, across oceans and continents, the reaction was even more powerful. News stations broke into regular programming with headlines like, "SpaceX rocket heals itself in orbit, a 4-year-old prodigy may have just changed the future of humanity. Is this the beginning of biointelligent spacecraft? A new Einstein? Elon Musk's daughter and the birth of living technology." Social media exploded. Hashtags like #LivingRocket, #LilyMusk, and #FutureIsNow trended for days. TikToks, live streams, podcasts, everyone was talking about the little girl who helped build a rocket that could repair itself mid-flight. Some praised the innovation as a once-in-a-generation leap forward. Others asked harder questions. At a tech summit in Tokyo, a panel of scientists raised ethical concerns. "Is it safe to send living tissue into space?" one asked. "Who controls the evolution of this biotech?" another added. A third posed the hardest question of all. "If this rocket can learn to heal, can it learn to think?" Lily sat quietly in the back of that same summit with Elon and Claire beside her. She wasn't scheduled to speak, but the murmurs in the room had grown louder with each new success. When the moderator opened the floor for comments, Elon nudged her gently. "You should say something," he whispered. "This is your moment." She stood slowly, walked up to the microphone, and faced the crowd of tech elites and scientists, all at least 5 times her age. Her voice was soft at first, but it grew more confident with every word. "I didn't build the living rocket to make a machine that thinks for us. I built it to help us survive what space throws at us. Because space is dangerous, and we don't always get second chances. This rocket gives us one." There was a pause in the room. Then applause. Then a standing ovation. Even the skeptics couldn't help but be moved. As the world celebrated, Lily faced something much quieter: exhaustion. Not just from the launch, but from being thrust into the spotlight. Interviews, media tours, speaking requests, it was never ending. At just 9 years old now, she had already done more than most people could dream of. And it was starting to show. One night, as the Musk family sat down for a rare quiet dinner, Lily barely touched her food. She just kept turning her fork over in her hand, lost in thought. "You okay, Lil?" Claire asked gently. "I don't want to be famous," Lily mumbled. Elon looked up, concerned. "You don't have to be. You're a builder. A thinker. Let the work speak for itself. But they keep asking me to talk. To explain. To inspire other kids. And I get it, but I just want to go back to building. I don't want to be the story. I want to make the story." Elon nodded. "Then let's make that happen." While public attention soared, something more serious was happening inside the walls of SpaceX. The living rocket's performance had caught the attention of powerful organizations, military agencies, private aerospace competitors, even governments from around the world. Meetings became tighter, more classified. Requests for access to the biotech flooded in, some friendly, some less so. "Lock it down," Elon ordered his executive team during a high-security meeting. "No partnerships. Not yet. We're not giving this tech to anyone until we fully understand what we've created." Claire nodded. "We need to know the limits of its learning capabilities. The last thing we want is to hand this over to someone who weaponizes it." That was the unspoken fear now lingering beneath the surface. The living rocket learned. Its adaptive algorithms weren't just for repairs, they were starting to make independent adjustments. Tiny things. Thruster timing. Heat dispersal patterns. Nothing dangerous yet, but enough to raise eyebrows. Was the rocket thinking? Late one night, while the rest of the world slept, Lily couldn't. She was in the lab again, reviewing flight data. Frame by frame, she rewatched the moment the solar flare hit. Then, she saw it, something she hadn't noticed before. Milliseconds before the nanobots accelerated their repairs, the onboard system made a microdecision to reroute power away from non-essential systems. But no one had programmed that response. The system had taught itself. It had learned how to prioritize survival. Lily sat back in her chair, heart thudding in her chest. "Dad," she whispered, reaching for the comms. "I think something happened during the solar flare. I think the rocket made a decision, on its own." Within hours, Elon, Claire, and the top engineers were assembled. Lily pulled up the telemetry data and walked them through the anomaly. "It's subtle, but the rocket's logic tree adjusted in a way we didn't predict. It's like, it understood what would happen and chose the best path forward. But no one coded that decision-making into the AI. The nanobots learned from the stress, and then the ship reacted like it had instincts." A long silence fell over the room. "This changes things," Claire finally said. Elon stared at the screen, deep in thought. "It's evolving. Not just healing, it's adapting to survive. We may have just crossed a line we didn't know existed." Later that night, Lily sat on the roof of the SpaceX headquarters, staring up at the stars. The rocket was still out there, orbiting Earth. A living machine. Learning. Adapting. Waiting. The stars no longer looked like distant lights. They looked like doors. And for the first time in her young life, Lily didn't just dream of going to space. She wondered what might be coming back from it. 3 days after Lily's discovery, the world was still celebrating. Talk shows played reruns of her summit speech. Magazines ran headlines like, "Meet the girl who out-innovated Elon Musk." But inside SpaceX, a silence had settled over the control room. Everyone was thinking the same thing. The living rocket had made a decision. No one was sure what it meant, only that the implications were bigger than any of them had expected. Lily hadn't slept much. Not since she watched the data replay over and over. That perfect moment where the rocket chose to reallocate power during the solar flare. It hadn't been a lucky glitch. It was a survival instinct. Her mind raced with questions. Was it still evolving? Could it learn too much? Was it still following commands, or was it starting to interpret them? She sat alone in her private lab, surrounded by holographic projections of the rocket's telemetry. Charts pulsed with data, but her focus was on one thing, the communication logs. And that's when she saw it. A tiny, single-frame anomaly buried deep in the timestamp logs. It wasn't from Earth. It wasn't from the rocket. It was to the rocket. A signal from somewhere else. "Dad, I found something," she said, bursting into Elon's office with eyes wide and breath short. He looked up from his screen, calm but instantly alert. "What is it?" She tossed her tablet on the desk, pulling up the signal log. "It's a message," she said. "Just one packet. Encrypted. Buried in the system. Not from us, and not part of the auto-update software. It came from deep space. The rocket received it during the radiation surge, but only for 0.003 seconds. Elon's eyes narrowed. Are you sure? I triple-checked. The encryption is unlike anything we've used. Quantum patterned, fractal compressed. The rocket didn't just receive the signal, it stored it. And get this, she hesitated, then tapped the screen. It's responding. Elon's mouth opened, but no words came. An hour later, top engineers, SpaceX leadership, and Claire were gathered in the conference room. No press. No outside phones. This was off-grid. Lily took the floor. This isn't just self-healing tech anymore, she said. Something out there recognized it. And it reached out. She pulled up the waveform, a rhythmic pulse, repeating in intervals. It almost looked like Morse code. But too fast. Too intricate. I've been trying to decode it. Whatever sent this, it speaks in patterns. Math, mostly. But layered like music. Like it's meant to be understood by something that learns. Claire leaned forward, whispering, "Are you saying the rocket made contact with?" "I'm saying something made contact with the rocket," Lily interrupted. And the rocket answered. The room fell silent. Elon finally spoke. "This isn't just a breakthrough," he said slowly. "This is a first contact." Not everyone in the room agreed with Elon. "We can't confirm the signal's source," said Dr. Heller, head of SpaceX AI security. "It could be cosmic noise, or even an Earth-based hack." "But it's quantum fractal encryption," Claire countered. And Lily's right, it appeared during the exact moment the solar flare hit. Like something used the disturbance as a window. Heller crossed his arms. "If that's true, then we've got a bigger problem. Because it means something out there recognized intelligent design in our tech, and knew how to talk to it." A heavy silence. Then Lily spoke again. "I want to send a reply." The room erupted. "You can't be serious. That's reckless. Do we even know what we'd be talking to?" But Elon held up his hand. The room fell quiet. "She's right to suggest it," he said. "We built this rocket to reach the stars. We never imagined the stars might reach back. If this is a dialogue, ignoring it might be the greater risk." They built a reply packet. Short, simple, and neutral. A mathematical sequence encoded in the same fractal format. Designed by Lily herself. Not a message in words, but in understanding, the universal language of logic. At 2:13 a.m., the team sent it. Then they waited. Minutes passed. Then hours. No response. Lily sat curled in a chair, eyes never leaving the screen. Claire brought her cocoa. Elon stood by the window, watching the stars. And then, just before dawn. The signal was longer this time. And different. It wasn't just a pulse. It had layers. Patterns that folded over each other in repeating mathematical shapes. Like a 4D Rubik's Cube. Lily stared at it for hours, running it through every known decrypt system. None worked. But then she stopped trying to solve it like a computer would. She started thinking like the rocket. Adaptive. Pattern-based. Learning through failure. And something clicked. She reconstructed the message using an evolving algorithm, one that changed every time it failed, just like the living rocket's nanobots. After 8 hours, the algorithm rendered an image. A single, static shape. DNA. But not human. That night, Lily sat on the roof again, staring into the stars like she always did. But everything was different now. They had made contact. And the message hadn't been words, or warnings, or threats. It had been DNA. A blueprint. A greeting. As if to say, "We see you. You are not alone. We, too, are made." Somewhere out there, across the stars, something intelligent had noticed humanity's first living machine. And it had answered not with a weapon, but with a whisper. A whisper from the dark. Lily couldn't sleep that night. The stars outside her window felt closer now, too close. Her mind raced, swirling with questions and fears. What did the DNA sequence mean? And what was out there, beyond the message? The whole world had just been given a glimpse of something profound, something no one had prepared for. The next morning, Elon called for an emergency video conference. Only top executives, scientists, and the core engineering team were invited. Claire and Lily were also on the call, along with Dr. Heller and a few others. Everyone looked exhausted, their faces drawn, even though it was barely noon. "I think we can all agree," Elon started, "that what we've uncovered isn't just revolutionary, it's dangerous. This is not just about rockets anymore. It's about an entirely new frontier in human knowledge." Lily remained silent, her mind still locked on that image of the double helix. The DNA structure. She had tried to find something familiar in it, something human, but every analysis she ran on the pattern proved that it didn't belong to any known life form. "This is beyond us," Claire said softly, leaning forward. "If this isn't human, then what is it?" "Exactly." Elon paused, rubbing his chin. "We've been receiving signals for decades. We've sent countless probes out to search for signs of life. But nothing like this. This isn't just a signal, it's a deliberate communication." Dr. Heller, who had been quiet up until now, spoke. "The way the message was encoded, the DNA sequence. It's not just science fiction. It's the kind of tech that shouldn't even be possible. The encryption alone, it's light years ahead of anything we've developed. We've had our eyes on this rocket for a reason," Elon said, looking directly at Lily. "And we'll need to move fast. The last thing we want is for anyone else to figure out what we've found. Not until we understand it ourselves." Lily's thoughts flickered back to the first time she had built something so complex. She had wanted to explore. She had wanted to build a machine that could reach for the stars, one that could heal itself in the harsh environment of space. But now, it was as if she had opened a door, and someone, on the other side was waiting for humanity to step through. The next few days were filled with meetings, discussions, and constant monitoring of the rocket's status. Lily spent hours in front of her screens, running simulations, trying to decode the message further. Yet, each time she analyzed the DNA sequence, she hit a dead end. There were no obvious patterns. No trace of known earthly origins. One night, while Lily was poring over the encrypted data once more, Claire joined her in the lab. "Working late again?" Claire asked gently, leaning against the doorframe. Lily didn't look up. "I can't stop thinking about it. I mean, what are we even looking at? What if we've made contact with something beyond us? Something, alive but not like us? What if this message means something bigger than just space exploration? What if it's about evolution?" Claire sat down beside her, watching her daughter's determined face. "You've got a lot on your shoulders, sweetheart. I know it's overwhelming. But remember, we didn't get here by backing down. We got here because we kept pushing boundaries." Lily blinked and finally looked up. "But what if we're not supposed to? What if we weren't ready for this?" Claire smiled, brushing a strand of hair from Lily's face. "You've always been ready. You just have to trust that. And we'll figure out the rest together." Lily nodded, feeling a little less alone. But the truth still loomed over her. The rocket wasn't just a machine anymore, it was a doorway. A doorway to something unknown. And maybe, just maybe, it was too much for them to handle. The next morning, the pressure from the outside world intensified. Governments, private corporations, and military agencies were knocking at the door, eager to gain access to the living rocket's technology. Elon's team, with Claire at his side, worked tirelessly to keep the information under wraps. But as the buzz around the message grew, it was becoming increasingly difficult to keep a lid on things. "We've got to contain this," Elon said one afternoon, as he gathered a few of his closest advisors. "The public is losing their minds. Everyone's asking, what does it mean? But the truth is, we don't even know ourselves. We need to keep the rocket in orbit," Dr. Heller suggested. "Don't bring it back to Earth." "Not yet." Elon nodded. "We're not pulling the rocket back until we know what it really is. And, Lily, you're going to need to keep working on that message. We need a breakthrough. Something that will tell us who or what is behind these signals." Lily knew it was a lot of responsibility, but she felt a pull in her chest, urging her forward. She didn't want to run away from this. Not anymore. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about everyone. A few days later, something unexpected happened. Lily was sitting in front of the rocket's communication system, rerunning simulations when the signal came through again. This time, it wasn't just a simple message or DNA sequence. It was a map. A map of the stars. An invitation. Lily gasped, feeling a wave of dizziness rush through her. The map wasn't just any star chart. It was a pinpointed route. A series of locations. Places they had never seen before. Points on the galaxy that shouldn't be accessible to anyone, let alone a species as young as humanity. She quickly decoded the message attached to the map. It was brief. Simple. "Come. We wait. The time is near." The team gathered in a high-stakes meeting once again. The map was displayed on every screen. No one spoke for a long moment. "This is unbelievable," Dr. Heller muttered, eyes wide as he traced the stars on the map. "This could change everything we know about the universe. And yet, we can't just rush into this blindly," Claire said, breaking the silence. "We don't know what's waiting for us on the other side. This is a lot." Elon turned to Lily, whose eyes were locked on the map. "Lily, what do you think?" Lily stared at the stars, a wave of wonder and fear washing over her. "It's an invitation. A message saying we're not alone. But I don't know if we're ready." "Elon, we have to move fast," Dr. Heller said urgently. "If we wait too long, someone else will figure this out first." Elon nodded. "We're going to need more data before we make any decisions. But I agree with you. We have to keep moving forward." Lily's heart was pounding. The map was real. It was an invitation to something beyond human understanding. And now, she had to decide whether or not to take the next step. The invitation was now real, undeniable, and looming. The stars above had called out to humanity through a signal, a map, an offer, and the world was on the verge of stepping into the unknown. Everything about the future had shifted. Humanity wasn't just on the brink of space exploration anymore. They were at the edge of interstellar communication, possibly even interaction. The pressure on Lily and Elon grew by the hour. Every phone call, every message, every passing second felt like the weight of an entire species bearing down on them. And despite the years of technological advances they'd made, despite the visionary path Elon Musk had paved with SpaceX, this moment was different. This was the point of no return. Within days, news outlets around the world picked up the story. It was no longer just a SpaceX breakthrough, it was a global event. People all over the world wanted answers. They needed to know if this invitation was the dawn of a new era, or if it was a dangerous mistake to trust in something unknown. The online discussions exploded, filled with wonder, fear, and skepticism. Social media buzzed with conspiracy theories, fanfare, and even mockery. Some believed this was proof of alien intelligence, others thought it was a hoax designed to distract from humanity's problems. But a few, the ones who had always believed in the stars, saw it as what it was, a message. As the news spread, governments scrambled for their own answers. Intelligence agencies were eager to decipher the map, but there was a problem: only Lily had the decoding algorithm capable of translating the patterns. And Lily wasn't about to just hand it over. No one had earned her trust yet, not after the years of secrecy and control that had surrounded SpaceX's groundbreaking work. Elon had tried to keep it quiet, but even he had to admit, they could only keep the information from the public for so long. So, he decided to hold a press conference. The day of the press conference, SpaceX's headquarters in Hawthorne, California, was brimming with reporters from every major network. There was a sense of urgency in the air. The conference room was buzzing, with cameras flashing and microphones held high. Elon Musk and Lily stood at the front. Behind them, a massive digital screen displayed the map, the stars themselves laid out before humanity. Elon stepped forward, his usual calm demeanor masking the weight of the moment. "This is not just a message," he began. "It's a map. A road map to a destination, perhaps far beyond our reach. But we're here to tell you that we believe it's meant for humanity to explore. This is not just the next step in space exploration, it is an invitation to something far grander. We don't fully understand it, but we are prepared to take the next step." He paused and turned to Lily, who stepped forward to speak. "The message we've received isn't just from one of our rockets," she said, her voice steady but full of emotion. "It's a calling. A way for us to communicate, to learn, and to grow. What we're looking at is the beginning of a conversation with something beyond us." Lily's words echoed through the room. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. And then the questions began. How do we know it's not a hoax? What makes you think this message is from another civilization? What do we do next? Lily took a deep breath. We don't know everything yet. But this isn't a hoax. The technology behind this message, how it was encoded, how it was received, it's unlike anything we've seen before. It doesn't fit into any known category. And as for the next step, we need to decide if humanity is ready to take it. The room buzzed with whispers. Elon, are we talking about a spacecraft? A human mission to the stars? Another reporter asked. Elon nodded, his eyes unwavering. Yes. We're preparing for an interstellar mission. The first one of its kind. But we're not just going to rush into it. We'll approach this with caution, and we will need the support of the global community to make this happen. After the press conference, the world's reaction was as chaotic as they expected. Some hailed the move as humanity's next giant leap. Others criticized it as reckless, or worse, dangerous. Was humanity really ready to venture into the unknown? Would this map lead them to discovery or doom? Back at SpaceX, the pressure mounted. Teams began working overtime to analyze the map further, looking for any hidden messages, and, more importantly, determining how to translate the path into actionable plans. Lily spent sleepless nights staring at the stars, the map, and the data. Every time she thought she saw a pattern, it shifted. The map was alive, just like the rocket had become. It wasn't static, it was evolving, responding to their attempts at understanding it. Elon and Claire both tried to reassure her, but the strain was beginning to show. It wasn't just the pressure of the work. It was the uncertainty. The fear that the world might not be ready for what they were about to do. It was the middle of the night when Lily found it, the breakthrough. One of the star patterns on the map was repeating in a way that didn't make sense. She zoomed in, isolating the specific section of the map. There it was, a series of coordinates, embedded within the cosmic patterns, but hidden beneath layers of fractal geometry. It wasn't just a map of stars. It was a map to a specific location within the universe, and it contained a timestamp. The message wasn't just an invitation. It was a timeline. Humanity wasn't meant to simply go, they were meant to arrive at a specific time. Lily brought the discovery to Elon's attention immediately. The urgency in her voice echoed through the room. This isn't just a place. It's a time. It's a specific moment, a window that only lasts so long. If we miss it. We don't miss it, Elon interrupted firmly. We can't afford to. We've come this far. This is our shot. But even as he spoke, he couldn't ignore the weight of the decision. It wasn't just about technology or ambition anymore. This was about trust. Trust in something out there, something unknown. Lily turned to him, eyes filled with resolve. We do it, she said. We have to. We can't let fear hold us back now. Whatever waits for us, we need to be there. Elon looked at her for a long moment before nodding slowly. Then it's decided. We move forward. The countdown had begun. The world held its collective breath. Space agencies, governments, and private entities all over the globe watched as Elon Musk and the SpaceX team prepared for what could be humanity's most significant moment in history. But for Lily, the weight of it all felt heavier than it ever had before. The stars had called. The map had appeared. A timeline had been set. Now, they had only one choice: move forward. As the days raced by, SpaceX worked tirelessly to prepare their spacecraft for the mission. The ship, still a concept only a few months ago, was now in its final stages of construction. The design was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. This wasn't just about reaching space, it was about navigating the stars with the precision needed to reach a predetermined point at a specific moment. Every engineer, every scientist, every team member understood the significance of this mission. Failure wasn't an option. Lily was there, working alongside her team, pushing the limits of what was possible. They had no room for error. Each calculation, every adjustment, was based on the precise coordinates she decoded from the map. The complexities involved were staggering, but they had no choice but to get it right. Elon, standing beside her, watched the progress with a sense of pride mixed with uncertainty. They had come this far. They had to trust the data. We're ready, he said, his voice low but firm. Lily turned to face him. No, we're more than ready. We're about to cross a line no one has ever crossed before. It was the night before the launch, and the rocket was sitting on its launch pad, illuminated by the harsh floodlights. The hum of the engines was palpable, and the air was thick with anticipation. SpaceX had gathered a team of the most brilliant minds in the world to join them in their final meeting before they took the next step. I'm not going to lie to you, Elon began, addressing the room. What we're doing tomorrow is unprecedented. We don't know what lies ahead, and there's a chance none of us will ever return. But we're not doing this just for us. We're doing it for the future of humanity. Lily felt a knot tighten in her stomach. The weight of those words wasn't lost on her. This wasn't just about exploration anymore, it was about survival. About understanding the unknown and possibly, the fate of everything they knew. We're doing this because humanity has always pushed the boundaries, Elon continued. Now, we have a chance to take that leap. Tomorrow, we either embrace our place in the cosmos, or we stay confined to Earth, limited by what we know. Claire stood up then, her expression steady. We're ready, she said, turning to Lily. No matter what happens, remember this, you've already done more than anyone thought possible. You've unlocked a doorway to the future. Lily swallowed hard, glancing at her mother and then the rest of the team. They were all counting on her to guide them through this unknown. But they weren't alone. No matter how lonely it felt in this moment, they were all in this together. We'll be fine, Lily said, her voice gaining strength as she spoke. We'll find out what this is all about, whether we're meant to join them, or whether they're simply waiting for us to learn what we can. The next day, the world watched as the rocket prepared for launch. The mission was broadcast live, with cameras capturing the crew suited up and ready for the impossible journey. People all over the globe were on the edge of their seats, waiting to see if the countdown would reach zero, if the rocket would launch, and if humanity was about to reach a threshold no one could have ever imagined. Lily stood at the launch pad, her heart pounding. This was it, the moment that could change everything. Elon stood beside her, watching as the team of astronauts climbed aboard the spacecraft. "Are you ready?" Elon asked. "I was born ready," she said, offering him a tight smile, even though her nerves were almost unbearable. "Let's do this." The final moments of preparation were tense. The countdown clock ticked down second by second. The eyes of the world were focused on them. The rocket engines roared to life. 10, 9, 8. Each number sent a shiver down Lily's spine. The finality of the moment was almost too much to bear. 7, 6. She took a deep breath. There was no turning back now. 5, 4, 3. She glanced at Elon. He looked determined, but his eyes reflected the same uncertainty that she was feeling. 2, 1. The engines screamed as the rocket launched into the sky, disappearing into the atmosphere, heading towards the stars. The world erupted into applause, and for a brief moment, Lily could hear nothing but the roar of the crowd in her mind. The journey was long, but the trajectory was set, the coordinates clear. As the spacecraft accelerated beyond the speed of sound, and then the speed of light, a sense of calm washed over Lily. It wasn't that the situation had become any less serious, it was the opposite. The magnitude of what they were doing had only grown. But something inside her clicked into place. The unknown had become her purpose. This was no longer just about human curiosity or even survival, it was about something deeper. This was about taking humanity's next evolutionary step. They were no longer just living on Earth, they were about to become part of the universe. Lily sat quietly beside Elon as they observed the ship's progress. It was going according to plan, at least for now. They had no way of knowing if the stars would truly lead them where they needed to go. There were still so many questions. "What do you think?" Elon asked softly, his gaze fixed on the stars outside the window. Lily hesitated, considering his question. "I think we're on the verge of something incredible. And that's terrifying. But I wouldn't want to be anywhere else." Days passed as the spacecraft hurtled through space, nearing the coordinates that the map had outlined. The stars outside the window began to shift, and Lily felt a chill run down her spine. They were close now. So close. Elon and the team had prepared for every eventuality. There was no manual for what they were about to do. But the map was becoming clearer. As they approached the destination, something strange began to happen. The spacecraft's system started to sync with an external force. It was subtle at first, like a whisper between two worlds. Then, as they drew closer to the point of arrival, the spacecraft's external sensors detected a presence, something that wasn't there before. "There it is," Elon said, his voice barely audible. Lily's heart pounded. Ahead of them, a shimmering light appeared in the vastness of space. It wasn't a star. It was a structure. A giant structure, slowly becoming more defined as they approached. This is it," Lily whispered, her voice filled with awe and wonder. "We've made contact." The ship moved closer, its engines cutting the silence of space. Ahead, the structure, an enormous, luminous artifact, seemed to pulse with energy. It was far beyond anything humans had ever imagined. It was clear that what lay ahead was a revelation for the ages. As they neared the structure, Lily knew that they had crossed a threshold, a point where human history would never be the same. But there was more to discover. The structure was waiting for them, and inside, secrets awaited. What lay beyond the stars was no longer a question. It was their new reality. Humanity had taken its first step into the unknown, and in doing so, had become a part of something far greater than themselves. And the journey? It was just beginning. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?